I'd like to call to order the City of Saugatuck City Council Workshop for February 4th, 2026. Jamie, will you call the roll?
Anderson,
Here.
Clark,
Here.
Dean,
Here.
Gardner,
Here.
Muncy,
Here.
Peterson. Here. Stanton.
Could someone make a motion?
Madam Chair, I move we excuse Lauren Stanton from the meeting today.
Second.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chris. Agenda changes. So we, Jamie sent around, or Ryan sent around, some information from the Engels, Holly and Dave, about, dockage for, commercial fishing. And they, I think, might show up to speak. So I was thinking, do we add them to the agenda or just, agree that if we have questions of them when we get to that, get to the priorities section, feel free to call on them. Is there a?
I like the idea of adding it, just going ahead and adding it to the
Okay.
goals and priorities.
Will you,
because
will you make a motion to add that to that
Yeah.
section of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to add the suggestion or the idea from the Engel family, I guess, for the fish station. To add on with the review of goals and priorities for fiscal year 2026, 2027 in G.
Second.
Jamie, is this voice? Roll.
I'm sorry, voice.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So we'll add that to the discussion. Thank you. Okay, that takes us to public comment on agenda items only. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak on an agenda item? Anyone online wish to? Okay, seeing none.
There's a couple folks that are just coming in, so maybe this
Okay.
might be worth repeating. Yeah,
Okay,
just to make sure we didn't miss anybody here.
great.
Go ahead and repeat that if you like.
Okay, public comment, period. Is there anyone online who wishes to speak? And Holly Engel, I see you're online and we've added you to the agenda for the discussion item on priorities. So you're welcome to speak now, but you'll have an opportunity to speak later. Anyone else online wish to make a comment? Raise your Zoom hand. I don't see anyone. Jamie, do you? All right. Then we will move to the approval of minutes from a regular city council meeting on January 26th.
Mayor, move to approve the regular city council meeting minutes from January 26, 2026.
Second.
To roll call vote.
Anderson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Yes.
Muncy,
I'll have to abstain due to my absence to that meeting, so I cannot.
Peterson.
Yes.
So I think you told me, Ryan, that actually you don't have to abstain should we address that now or at another time?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so if you're
Because I've
not,
done that before. I just, and I just I don't know how I could vote for minutes that I wasn't here to observe. That's all.
Jake, do you want to weigh in on that at all? I don't. have a
Yeah,
point of
so
view.
the council's rules of procedure require council members to vote on things unless they have a conflict of interest. So I think in that position, what you would do is unless you have a reason to believe that the minutes are inaccurate, you would just vote in favor of approving them.
Okay.
Well, we voted now, so just for future purposes, why don't we? I just
I
wanted.
just doesn't, I'm just being honest, I could never vote on anything that I wasn't here. Now, I did read the minutes, but if there were any kind of corrections, I couldn't say that. So I'm just, I'm doing an honest vote is how I feel. That's all.
Okay.
I don't think it's that big of an issue, really.
Discussion items, proposal for logo and branding refresh. Ryan?
yeah, thank you, Mayor. And Good afternoon to all of you on the council. We have a jam-packed agenda today with a lot of big projects to discuss, and happy to kick it off here with proposals for the logo and branding refresh project. As you may recall, in December, you all approved a branding advisory committee and issuing a request for proposals to find a firm to help us, design a new logo and kind of a branding kit to go along with that. So we got that RFP out, and we received a really great response. 26 proposals from across West Michigan, Greater Michigan, the Midwest, and as Tim Straker, who's actually chairing kind of our group informally, even internationally. Our costs of the proposals range from $7,000 to nearly $100,000, and we saw a range there with the costs, as I'm sure you saw as you were looking through the proposal. So it's kind of a summary of the evaluation criteria that we use as a committee. We took a look at looked at the core requirements of the proposal. We looked at design readiness of the firms, as well as evaluating their understanding of Saugatuck, and based on a kind of a number of questions that we wrestled with. The recommendation from the committee is that we hire Concept A Creative Studio for the following reasons. One, they have experience with both municipal and corporate branding, including experience with West Michigan local and regional municipalities. In fact, they did the Saugatuck Township logo, the Village of Spring Lake logo. They also have experience with our own Convention and Visitors Bureau here locally, and including several campaigns with proven results. Which really gives them a good knowledge base of the city and the area, and would really make onboarding easier and more productive. And looking at the cost of their proposal was $24,500. Certainly it wasn't the lowest, but nowhere near the highest other. And we felt that it was realistic, and also I think there's some good value there as well. So if I may, Mayor, I maybe would check with our chair, Tim Straker, who's online, as well as Councilmember Peterson, who's also on the committee, to see if they have anything to add before you kind of deliberate on all of the proposals, and ultimately, and we're here to answer questions as well.
Great, Chris, you want to?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. For me, it was interesting to read all the proposals, because they ranged from $7,000 almost to $100,000. And Ryan's description for the request for proposal was very well written. So we knew exactly what they had to cover. He laid it all out, and they all did it. Lauren was there, myself, Tim was on the phone from Amsterdam, I think, and Ryan, and we all picked this one. It was unanimous, and because of those reasons, the cost, the location, the experience, there's somebody that we can reach out to and touch right away if we need something. And they just did a wonderful proposal that if you go through all, you'll see that. Plus, we have Tim, who's one of the foremost design artists, not only in Michigan, but worldwide, I'm going to say, Tim.
Well, Tim, that's your introduction to chime in.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. And I apologize. I'm in another airport today, so I'm sorry for not being on camera. I think you guys said it well. The only two bits I would add is to the point of the ranges. I would have a challenge with anyone at the very low end of the range that Chris and Ryan mentioned, and I would have a challenge with anyone at the very high end of the cost range. And I think Concept A was really accurately scoped. The second, so that felt right. Second thing is they really understand how to brand with a sense of place. And I think our sense of place is so important as we sit as Saugatuck in West Michigan, within the Midwest, in terms of the story we have to tell. And I think they really understand that from the other work they do. And they just did a really good job of storytelling their unique benefits within their proposals. So I think they have a track record. They'll get up and running probably more quickly than anyone else, because they have a shorter discovery period process than probably other firms would have. So I feel really good about the decision that the committee came to.
Great. Ryan?
Yeah, and Mayor, we actually have Andy Dahl here with Concept A for any questions that you might have directly of their firm, and background, experience, anything you want to throw at them. I anticipate Andy would be ready to take that question on as well.
Great.
Just a question for you. Can you remind me what the budget allocation that we're planning for was?
Yeah, so we kind of had a number of items that we budgeted for this year under kind of contractual services under city council based on a number of priorities that you had. So it was $125,000 that we had put together in that line item that was supposed to cover, your parking study and consultant, but also included logo, branding, wayfinding. It also included deer management and telecommunications and that sort of thing as well. So 82,000 of it was used for the parking study. With the 24,500, we're still within that $125,000 budget line item for this current fiscal year. So comfortable with the budget at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Russ?
Hi, good afternoon. Hi, Tim. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Russ.
Hey,
Yeah.
I first heard about Concept A. I really didn't connect the dots. When we first started talking about the historic district signage update, I remember you mentioning Concept A, and now it's all connecting that Concept A is also the recommended contractor for the logo refresh. And the work with CVB. So I think sorry, sometimes it takes a moment for me to connect all the dots here. So again, I'm on the same page on this. The question though is, it may be a question for Chris and for the city manager, and particularly for Tim, I know Lauren's not here, is the way that this is presented, are we looking at a completely new logo for the city or just a branding refresh? In other words, the concept, and I wasn't here when the City of Saugatuck current logo was designed. The previous to this, it was a rendering of City Hall. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but that was the previous logo. And the concept behind the current logo, I think, remains pertinent, right? It's the river. That hasn't changed. But it's not, from my understanding, it's not web ready. So in other words, this isn't easily used for designs. It's not easily used for transfer for electronic purposes. So is there some thought about completely redoing this or just making this more ready for use in the current environment for social media and, maybe refreshing that? I'm just kind of curious. So where this is kind of where.
I mean,
we haven't gone there
I
yet.
I can weigh in. I think it's a branding exercise. And so we didn't approach it as a redo or add-on or evolution of what's there. They may choose after their discovery process to make that part of the journey. But I think versus a logo exercise, I would call it a branding exercise, and I would call it digital first. That's the way most people experience, even our agendas that are online or Facebook notices, but also extends to things like, signs on the sides of trucks, or things around town or public notices. I would not take it to the point where it automatically, replaces signage all around town or anything like that. I would first start with I think Concept A is going to start with a discovery exercise around Saugatuck as a brand, as the official brand and how we show up. And they'll sort of reflect their recommendations in a number of different touch points.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. And I'm certainly no expert on this, but it's just, you know a good logo and a good brand when you see it, right? I mean, that's just basically, I just don't want to run into a situation, and not to use the example of Cracker Barrel, but we saw we're no Cracker Barrel, but the point being is that you can upset the apple cart with something that's pretty good already, right? It just needs to be brought into the modern age, essentially, and y'all kind of know what happened with Cracker Barrel. So I just put that out there as just for consideration as we work through this. That might be part of the conversation, is maybe this is good. It just needs to be refreshed.
I think that's the exciting part about this.
Yeah.
We don't know the answer to
Yeah.
that.
We don't, and
That's right.
for what we do, there
Good.
will be people who don't like it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Good, just I bring that up as just a kind of observer and.
Who do?
yeah, I mean, I
So-
think that's a good point, Russ.
Yeah, so thank you.
All right, anything else? Okay. And thank you for joining our meeting. Okay, so that'll be on our agenda on Monday, and that takes us to the design for the new historic district signage.
I
Ryan?
think Grayson's going to take this
Or
one.
Grayson, sorry.
Maybe Andy as well. Right? So.
So I just wanted to let you know that during their January Historic District Commission meeting, Concept A had presented a second round of sign concept proposals for the commission to review. And following their discussion, they chose to recommend round 2, direction 1, to be the historic district signage throughout the city. And Chair Straker is online and probably would like to add a bit to how they determined that recommendation.
That'd be page 14 then, right? You said round 2 direction, round, what was it?
13.
13, excuse me. Okay, sorry. Direction 1, sorry.
Yeah, I'll just say a couple of things about this. We asked them to go back and we were really happy with their first round. We asked them to fine tune a little bit in terms of their historical reference of some of the graphic elements on the sign and to make it a little easier to read, which is what they did. And that's what you're seeing here. We love that they sort of anchored the graphic element and the dental element of the old hardware building, which is one of the oldest buildings in town. So it has some, any good design is usually rooted in a why. And so we felt good that they rooted it in a reason. The other important thing about these 2 or 3 signs, depending on how many there is 2 replacements with a third that we'd like to put at the bottom of Allegan coming down the hill, entering the district, because so many people enter that way, is that this should not be confused with city branding, and it should not be it should work with the rest of the look and feel of what's going on in the city. So we didn't really, want it to sort of feel like Saugatuck branding. So please don't think that this is a precursor to what the previous conversation might lead to. This should have a sense of entrance and celebration of the district, and that's its job. And so we felt like they had accomplished that goal.
Great. Any questions for Grayson or Tim?
Yeah, thanks again, Tim. I remember when this first came up at the Historic District Commission and it was a kind of a group idea of something that we needed to refresh, and I'm so glad this is coming forward. I love this idea, this concept, and I fully support the design that's been proposed. The Historic District Commission at the time had discussed, and Tim alluded to it, whether we have 2 or 3 signs. We currently have one on the entrance to town on the south side as well as the north side. And I would certainly support having a 3rd sign coming into town off of Allegan. Do we know yet what the timeline, the construction materials, would these be metal signs? Are they going to be, what material would they be made out of? Do we know that yet?
Yeah, I just got a quote today, and Andy might be able to talk about the material a little bit better than I, because I just glanced at it. So price wise, we're right around like $2,500 for this per sign.
Per sign.
But Andy, do you want to talk about the material a little bit and what they're made of and their durability and?
Yeah, we shopped around a couple of places. The first place was up in Muskegon. It was basically just an 8-inch pole where they connect clamp on one side of the pole, where you see the pole on the back and side. So we feel the best way to do it is to have the whole sign cast. Basically it's a cast sign. And then how it adheres on a pole would actually be part of the cast process. So the sign actually sits on top of the 2.5-inch diameter pole. So I have a spec sheet if you want to kind of see it. So we ended up finding a place in Pennsylvania as a resource. There's others, but.
And we did sort of look at this through our, obviously, we had to approve it ourselves in terms of meeting our historic district guidelines for materiality.
So that's $2,500 per sign. Is that 2-sided or just 1-sided?
It's 2-sided.
Two-sided?
We don't have a design on the back side, just because it's your
Okay.
looking at that time. But we do feel like it needs to be painted.
So it won't be leaving the historic district, just be entering the historic district.
Yeah,
Okay.
it could save.
No, I'm just curious. What's the timeline on this if council approves the request?
From this one production place is 8 weeks to produce.
Okay, so maybe by the beginning of the season this year. Or once the weather breaks, potentially.
Yeah, it's probably sometime this spring. Yeah, maybe early summer. Yeah,
Well, I love it.
to get it installed.
great work, Tim, leading this process through for the Historic District Commission. This is exciting.
Scott, anything to add as a historic district commissioner?
No, I think, my first meeting was for the round one. It was a good discussion. And by round two, it was unanimous support for round two, direction one that's before you here on the screen. So I think so far I haven't heard anyone that has not really been impressed with this particular sign. I mean, very broad support for it. And the little nod to the oldest building in town is
Yeah.
a nice touch. So I think it's an excellent choice for the city.
Great. Any other comments?
About how big are these signs proposed to be? What's the size of them? Because how I'm looking at it in the depiction there, it looks pretty big. So 24 by 36.
Yeah, it's a good call out. There was a page in the deck that sort of showed it in context of kind of coming in from the Lake Street side of the cacophony of signs that it needs to compete within, like the landscape that it needs to stand out in. So that's how the size was chosen. There's like speed limit signs and green city signs and things coming in. So it needed to sort of hold its own without being too large. So that's where the size came from.
And if I may, I don't want to, of course, hurt any feelings creative, but and I mentioned it last time, there's so much negative space at the top, and I'm just wondering why that's needed. I just as a design
The
standpoint.
rebranding might turn up.
What's that?
I said you may never know what the rebranding might turn
Okay.
up.
I just wondered why.
I'll speak from my perspective. I think there's just confidence in brevity. There's sort of the strength in this branding is not filling space. You sort of notice it based on the container it's within. So I like that it sits in a field where it stands out, where the graphic elements feel a little more special, where you notice the care that was given to the fonts, things like that.
So your idea is that it would get more attention then?
Yes, it holds its own.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, is it a black background or a dark green? Because it's sometimes,
It kind of looks almost bluish on the screen that we're seeing and also in here as well. It's got like a blue tint to it in the picture when I'm looking at my device here and at the picture up here. So is it black or is it blue?
We're recommending a dark navy background with a gold.
Okay.
Awesome. We've recommended 2 Sherwin paint colors, but we'll leave that up to the Historical Society or Historical District to finalize those.
I didn't even get it right at all.
The interesting thing is it does sort of play off the state of Michigan historic markers
Mhm.
in terms of the color scheme.
Right.
Okay.
I like the blue.
Anything else?
Just one quick question. I love the sign, love the design. Applaud all the work that's gone into it, and I think it'll look really great. It'd be a good representation of our town. Just the only question I have is $2,500 a sign, what's the lifespan typically of a, you said it was stamped and painted, right? And
I think it's cast and
Yeah.
painted, and
Andy, can you come to the mic?
Is it painted or is it wrapped?
Thank you.
I think it's casted and then painted.
Okay.
And they can match any paint color on there. But
Okay.
will they stand behind the finish, the coating?
I really don't know. I mean, I think we're asked to kind of design it.
Oh, okay.
And production files.
We could explore that. It's a good call out. It needs to stand the test of time and not look, faded and sad in 3 years. So I think in our exploration of manufacturing and fulfillment, we can make sure that happens.
Got it.
And
Thanks.
keep it away from any curves where a drunken driver might take it out.
Yeah, don't put it on the corner of Holland and Blue Star.
We're back to you building it.
Good.
Yeah, sure.
Can't do that.
All right,
And we're not lighting these signs.
That's right. Any final comments before we move on? All right, well, this will be on our agenda as well. Okay, it takes us to Maple Street. I know we have Scott and John here. Thank you for joining us. And Andy, thank you for coming to the meeting. Appreciate you being
Thank
here.
you.
And thanks, Tim, for joining as well. All right.
Hello, everybody. Wow, this is a big one. So really excited to see projects get to this point. So, I don't know if that's the same for you, John, or not, or if it's just as the Pandora's box, but, no. In relation to Maple Street, you know, we've seen on the capital improvements plan, this project has, began work last fiscal year. Obviously it's taken, started to take some shape this year in this current fiscal year. And then it'll also carry over into next fiscal year. So we've been talking about this project for a while. We've seen it slide over on the CIP. We've also, you know, in the master plan and especially in the survey, we've heard comments from our folks in the neighborhood, how they really want to see investments in our infrastructure, including, you know, the non-motorized pieces of our infrastructure. This definitely delivers on that, the scope of this project, as well as reconfirming the goal from our strategic planning session. So, Maple Street put a pretty comprehensive bid package together, which the bid opening for it was on January 27th. We were able to secure a few bids. The first one coming out from Milbacher and Sons in the amount of $5,365,953.50. And then it got better from there. Second bid was Redline Excavating at $4,775,623. And then the lowest bid came in from Skipper's Excavating out of West Olive, Michigan at $4,334,036.50. I do get a kick out of the 50-cent.
I do too.
Yeah. So a lot's gone into this. You know, we've been through the planning phase and last fiscal year, planning and design, hosted the workshop to generate some community feedback on what they would like to see in our finished product. We've walked through the length of the road, and then we've also held a formal design review. So we've gone through the details of this project pretty extensively. So, but understandably, that's a very high number, but it's not just Maple Street. It's the needs of Maple Street consist of the water main replacement, water service extensions and replacements, identifying some of the unknowns from our lead service lines, inventory and getting those replaced, sanitary sewer repairs and or lining. Also stormwater detention near the intersection of Mason Street and Maple, culvert repairs, and then also the 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk that'll be installed on the west side of the road. In addition to that, the pricing includes the resurfacing of the driveway at Public Works, Mary Street improvements, so road resurfacing on Mary Street, as well as repairing a sunken-in catch basin, bringing that back up to the grade where it should be. And then we also wanted to install some water gate valves along Water Street. So in the event that there's any water infrastructure leaks, that can be better isolated and not affect as many properties. And then also, due to the high water levels that we experienced back around 2019, 2020, there's still some of those maintenance pieces along our seawall. We've put that project out for bid a couple of times, but just I think given the specialty of it, we haven't really had any success securing bids for that. So a good tactic that we've seen work is to tack that onto a bigger project, and we were able to secure some pricing for that as well. So that covers work over at Coughlin Park, Wicks Park, the Spear Street Boat Launch, as well as the Francis Street end. But this is, like I said, quite a big project. So if there's any questions, happy to answer them. I think the Manager Cummins is prepared to talk about some of the accounting aspects of it, which will be in and of itself pretty extensive. And then in the packet, you'll see the recommendation from staff and Fleece and Vanderbrink to award bid to Skipper's Excavating, and who are also pre-qualified from MDOT. And you've worked with Skipper's before. They said that they've done some work in the city. I have to review what work that they've done in the city, but it seems like they're very reputable and capable of doing the work. So, John, if you want to maybe touch base about the work proposal.
Yeah, and I kind of couched it as we had an okay day last week. Okay being we aren't in front of you with, 6 or 8 bids, several of them lower than our estimates. They're right at our estimates plus the contingency that we had built in, basically. But we didn't have a bad day because a bad day looks like bids are 20, 30, 40, 50% higher. We don't have any bids is kind of the worst day. So we're right in the middle there. It's still doable as presented, pending kind of Ryan's discussion on the final budgeting and things like that. The other thing that kind of came back to me as we were getting back into the details, reviewing all the numbers, is all the little things that kind of added on to this. And Scott already mentioned what they are, but a lot of times he says that, once we get a contractor in town of this capability, we hold on to them and we have them doing work, that we add on. This time we kind of approached it the opposite. We included that intentionally in the bid package. So if these pieces don't look doable from a budget standpoint, they're still easily separate out instead of going backwards and adding. So all that's still fair game, up for discussion. On the engineering side, it is our normal kind of services, from putting the contracts together to administering them on your behalf, looking at pay applications, all of the things that we do from an office standpoint. Again, to Scott's point, this is going to be an accounting function on its own, just keeping track of who's paying for what. Is this foot of water main a city or a township or a private? So there's a lot of different funding sources. So we'll be keeping track of all those details and being transparent with each pay application that gets recommended for payment. Boots on the ground is the biggest driver of our costs. And again, we're kind of planning on most of the construction season being construction. So that's the main driver. We definitely want somebody. We have a pretty good level of trust with skippers, but we still think it's valuable to have somebody working with them, keeping track of all those numbers in the field, making sure that things are getting built right, making sure that residents are getting treated properly, and we're being respectful of, especially getting into homes throughout the course of this project. We really want somebody working with them kind of to be resolving the problems that inevitably will arise. So that's what's built into our engineering proposal. The numbers in our engineering proposal are right in line with where we were during the kind of the planning phase, with the addition of some additional time for some of those add-ons that happened. So that's kind of where we're at. Full
Yes.
picture. More things really quick.
Okay, yeah.
Just worth noting, it's not gonna,
That's something.
I don't anticipate it to cause any issues, but, we were awarded the MDOT Category B grant for this, and they still do have to review and approve of this, but we don't expect that to be a hang up at all. But, and then also too, as far as the timeframe of the work, Mary Street being right downtown, we expect them to tackle that project before Memorial Day, as well as some of the seawall work.
Yeah, that's a good point. All of the work downtown here, we require to be done before Memorial Day, because we know it's going to be more invasive than working on the other side of town.
Great. Chris, I know you had a question, then Ryan has something to add.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Just kind of want to go over, how we're looking from a funding perspective. So Jamie has a sheet. I get, you had this at your seat here to look at, and we'll include this in your packet for Monday as well. And Jamie's got a copy on the screen here. So everybody a chance to get to that. So so on the sheet that is at your desk here, on the left side, I included kind of our pre-design funding plan to kind of, before we actually approved the design engineering proposal to move forward, you wanted to know, how are we going to pay for this? And so we'd, I worked to put together a plan of funding sources here to tackle this project. Some of it was going to involve funding from the township, our grant from MDOT, some use of water sewer fund, local streets and general fund. And looking at the kind of the post-bid funding plan and how the costs all came in, we're pretty much right on track. So as we negotiated with the township, part of those negotiations involved sharing part of that MDOT Category B grant. So their contribution is a little less when you take that grant off there, and then our portion of the grant was lessened by that. So we lost some dollars there that then you'll see in some later funds that we had to make up for. So we now have a separate water and sewer fund. So that's why those are shown a little bit differently than they were before. And so now we have some accurate numbers as far as what those fund balance numbers are since that split that you all approved. So with the bid numbers that we have, we're looking at $916,000 from the water fund. And then $96,000 of the expenses will hit the sewer fund. That sewer fund number, I think, is quite high. Part of what they included in the bids was potentially extending some sanitary service to 700 North Maple. At this point, they haven't taken advantage of this opportunity to get this work done now. It's kind of an enforcement case that we have ongoing. So about $45,000 or so of that cost will probably be reduced there. The local street fund, we're looking at about $1,371,000 of expenses that would hit that fund. Pretty much on target with what we were planning for earlier. Again, we had some of our MDOT Category B grant was going to help with that piece, so we lost some of those dollars there. Some of the now on the positive side there. This current fiscal year and looking at, how much we spent on resurfacing already for the areas that we did, as well as kind of how the costs are coming in for Mary Street, we're actually going to have about $50,000 of resurfacing savings in local streets and $40,000 from major streets. So that helps a bit there. On the general fund side of things, instead of about $920,000 of expenses, we're looking at about a little bit over $1 million of general fund expenses for the project. The good thing is the sidewalk. Remember, that was a big piece of discussion. The estimate on that was going to be $1,070,000. We're actually about $970,000, so about $100,000 there, which helps when we're looking at the seawall kind of repairs and concrete repairs coming in at about I think it was $160,000, which we had some of those dollars budgeted, but then, as you know, we're replacing pilings out at Coughlin Park and Shopper Docks, and have work done at Willow Park. So the net result of that kind of makes up for some of the savings on the sidewalk side of things. And then the DPW lot surfacing kind of was a little under what they were anticipating as well. So that helps offset some of that cost as well. And then on the and then 720 North Maple, remember they wanted an 8-inch stub put in. They're going to be paying for that 100%. And then the cost to take care of their connection issue, there's an estimate, and then they're paying for half. That's also built into their reimbursement as well. So that's kind of the proposed funding plan. And then next to that middle chart there, I kind of showed you where beginning the fiscal year, what the audited fund balances were, and then what our current budget anticipated that we were going to use as far as our fund balances go. Now only 60% of the Maple Street project is budgeted for this current fiscal year because it's going to carry on, into next fiscal year. So now that number could be, higher or lower depending on how the work is progressing. So don't hold me exactly to these exact fund balance numbers, and that, they could shift one way or another depending on what fiscal year the work hits. But for the most part, we're still looking at some really, especially when we consider the additional water infrastructure fees that are going to be coming in over the next, remaining parts of the year and into next year, as well as local, county, and Act 51 dollars for roads. I think we're sitting pretty good as far as all of our funds go. The one that we're going to be tight on is frankly the water fund, and having that support this project. The gate valve piece was a little bit more than we had budgeted for. Again, that was included in this fiscal year's budget, so we had some dollars built in. But with the additional water infrastructure fees that we're going to see, plus the fund balance that we have, I think we're going to be fine there. It's as we continue to collect those funds and then look towards Elizabeth Street and what that potential water main's going to cost, to where we'll have to have maybe potentially some discussions depending on what those costs look like. As you may recall, we're actually using some of our general fund dollars to help take care of the engineering portion of the water side of Elizabeth Street, just to give us a little bit of a buffer in that particular fund. So that's the one fund that, that's why that water infrastructure fee is so important. I mean, thank goodness that you all took the leap and put that in place, because as you see, that's $350,000 a year. And had we not put that in place, I mean, we would be, proposing even more use of general fund dollars at this point. So overall, I think we're sitting pretty good from a funding perspective, and have good fund balances and some good revenue streams to help with, meeting the project costs. And but I'm happy to answer any questions on that too. So.
Oh, Chris?
Yes, thank you. I have two questions. The first, John, you talked about allocating costs between the township and the city and then private. Can you tell me what the private costs mean and how much that's going to hit some people, and do they know it?
Yeah, private costs are the ones that Ryan mentioned, 720 Maple. Has, aims at future private development of their properties. So that would be something that we don't want them to come back in 2 years and, okay, we're ready, we're gonna cut into the road. So we worked with them on a cost sharing agreement to, so they know this is coming. They've already signed on the dotted line.
But anything going into a house, that's taken care by us.
Any water services that fail the lead and copper rules required, so anything that's galvanized or lead, it has to get replaced into the home. That's built into here. That's 100% savings.
Okay, thank you. And then I know this is probably boilerplate language, but what do we have in place if there's damage or something fails? Who picks up the cost for those kinds of things?
Are you talking when they're working like in a home? Yeah, so the contractor will be fully insured. That all goes through a formal damage claim process if there is something.
And then if something that shippers builds and it breaks and creates damage, are they on the hook for that?
We have a standard in the industry, it's a 1-year builder's warranty. We'll do a walkthrough at the end. Obviously, that's part of the reason we have somebody out there on a daily basis who's going to see the final product necessarily at the end. It's all the stuff that's getting buried and compacted and things like that. So
thank you.
We're part of your warranty during construction.
Thanks.
Pre-construction footage, like very detailed pre-construction footage.
Good point. Yes, in this cost, there is a professional video firm will go through and document what things look like before they start breaking ground, so that, is this crack in my driveway when we were old? We can.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Shockingly, people do try to claim that damage that pre-existed was a part of a construction project. So I've even seen some of their footage before where that exact example, we were able to zoom in on cracks that had been there before construction. So
Nice, thank you.
paintings falling off the walls
Yeah.
inside of the house and everything in between.
Travis?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Regarding the water improvements, would any of that, I see we have, obviously we're pursuing the MDOT grant. Would any of the water pieces have been eligible for an Eagle State Revolving Fund grant or loan?
We actually included Maple Street and the services in our, we applied 2 or 3 times and just,
Okay.
again, we're not making the cut from financial reasons more than anything.
Thanks for trying, yeah. And just, I think it was very smart to put this out to bid with these added improvement projects around town. And I think I would urge staff to emphasize that in communications out to the community about when this project's going on. I think it will be, much more palatable and I think exciting to folks to realize that it's going to show a lot of infrastructure work really throughout the city, in addition to Maple Street, which obviously has a great need, which has been identified, but some of these other projects, boat ramp, the parks around the waterfront, people see that stuff all the time, and to see that being improved, I think it's, even if it's a small portion of the cost, I think the impact will be big. So I would certainly try to emphasize that as you talk up the project going forward.
To your point, even on like the plans, what we named the project was not Maple Street Improvements. At some point, we made the change to call it 2026 Street Improvements.
I love it.
Because it's bigger than Maple Street.
I love it.
Yeah, because I do hear when roads are being worked on, a lot of other folks will say, well, what about us? So we'll be able to say, well, we're redoing this, we're redoing that. A lot of our city infrastructure is getting hit as well. So I like that as well, Scott.
Yeah, and I'll just add that all of the things that were on that list, I think all of the things that were on that list were in the capital improvements plan that we reviewed, about a year ago. So they were all known needs. It wasn't, things that were pulled out of here.
Good thinking.
Joe?
Just two quick questions. You mentioned that the bids came in pretty close to what you had originally estimated in the initial planning phase, inclusive of contingency. Does that mean that we lost our contingency because the bids are coming in higher, or do we still have the contingency built into the project?
It's close, right? And I didn't look at the totals where everything shook out. I think much of that contingency that we had built in, and when we do a planning project, we kind of call it undeveloped details and contingency because we know that we didn't account for everything. So we recommend going into the project with about 5%. We try to build in about 5% contingency into the contract itself, just into the, you know, the square feet of sidewalk and the tons of asphalt, things like that. On the side, it's good to have, you know, another 3 to 5% contingency just to handle it, because once you start digging, you never know.
Right.
So, yeah.
I guess another way of asking, so the contingencies are still there. It's not that the bids came in higher and therefore the contingencies disappeared.
Yeah, the contingencies are less than what we had because the bids
They
did
are
come
less.
in a little higher than what we thought they would. So there is still contingency there. It's not quite.
It's not as high as what you would normally plan going into this. So
Another good example on the water services, we kind of took a worst case approach because there's things that we don't know that we've still got to get inside and see, do we need to replace this or not? We kind of took a worst case, everything that we didn't know, we assumed was going to need to get replaced.
Okay.
Ryan?
Nope, if you still got some
Okay.
questions, I just want.
The other question maybe for you, Ryan. I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. So the beginning, all the way to the right, beginning fiscal year 25-26 fund balance, if I just pick the water fund, 580, ending year is 244. Total cost 916, of which some percentage, 60 or whatever, is going into this year. So if you do the math, it comes out to what, about 700,000? Am I doing that right?
So 60% of that water cost is already kind of built into, you know, the revenues and expenses for, and then the net result of that is use of some fund balance in the water fund is going to bring it down from 580 to 244. Now there's potentially 40 to 45% of the water main cost is going to be the following year.
Understood.
But then there's additional revenue from the water infrastructure
That's where
fee
it's going.
is what's
Is that
going to be.
Is that revenue included in the 244 number?
No, that's just potentially where we could end this current fiscal year from a fund balance perspective. This year's, yes,
This
but
year.
next year's, no.
Okay, got it. Got it. Okay, nope, that clarifies it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some buffer in there and that, you know, I think we estimated our revenues for that a little lower, so there's some dollars that'll be there, but
No,
right.
Other questions?
I think this looks
And
great.
The other
Oh,
kind of, sorry, excuse me, the other kind of add-in was just any other projects that are going to draw down that fund are obviously not included in the estimate, right? So if something pops up and we need to draw down that fund,
Yeah, I mean, if there were some
the
other,
project impact to the fund balance, if we're looking at it, in other words.
that's just total for that fund, whatever we had budgeted in that
Oh,
fund.
for
So
whatever.
there were like things like I said, the gate valve was already included in that. But it was at
Gotcha.
$50,000, not $84,000 like it came in at. Water, actually lead service lines, we did have some budget in there for that. That would come from that anticipated use of fund balance. We used some of that with some cost share with folks, but not all of it. So on the sewer side, I did want to, this kind of leads to that, you know, less was needed from that. And maybe John could just touch on it. There's not really a lot of sewer repair work that's going to occur with this particular project either.
Yeah, we kind of put a placeholder in there. We had done a high level evaluation of the sewer system with the stormwater asset management and wastewater project, you know, almost 10 years ago now. So we had some baseline information, thinking, you know, there might be some sewer repairs, there might be some manhole repairs. As we dug into, you know, revisited the video and dug into the details during design, the sewer repairs weren't really urgent enough where we thought it's important to do this at this project. We'd recommend lumping it in with doing some lining as part of a bigger project that doesn't require digging into the road. And the manhole repairs were, you know, within the top of the chimney, basically. We would be doing that with the road anyway. So those will be getting, so that's all tracked under road items right now because it was stuff we would have done regardless. So that item kind of went from, I think we had 40,000 something in there. That's kind of zeroed out.
It might be good too, just, I know you looked at culverts as part of this as well as, cause I know that's top of mind from what happened with Ferry. Can we maybe touch on what you guys found as far as that and the work the extent of work there?
Yeah, all of the significant cross culverts, we poked our heads inside, and got in there and, you know, did a visual evaluation at least. Didn't see anything glaring. Some of the end sections we're going to be replacing and extending and things like that. Doing some new scour protection around the ends, things of that nature. So there is still culvert work in there, but it's not, we need to replace this culvert. We feel, you know, perfectly confident putting that new road on top of most of what's out there, and anything that wasn't is being addressed.
Right. Ryan, the township is contractually locked into their share of this, right?
Yep, we have a legal agreement. Everything's been shared with them. They're looking over the numbers as well, but so far we haven't heard any concerns, so. Yep.
Anything else? Russ? Oh.
Yeah,
I
man.
was,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was going to say, I just want to say I'm ready to move forward. I wanted to thank you did you put this together or did our treasurer?
I did, yeah.
Great job.
Thank you.
This has really answered a lot of my questions when we got into this. And I want to say that you did a great job with that. I feel very confident going forward. I want to thank all the work that you guys have done for this as well. So I just want to put that out there. I think this is really well done. And I really like how you showed us where the budget is, where we're going to end up. That really answered a lot of my questions. So.
Okay, Russ?
Yeah, thank you. Good comments again. Thanks all around to John and Scott for putting all this work into this. Again, thanks Ryan for the funding plan. That was extremely helpful. You know, big thanks to Saugatuck Township. This is unusual. We in the past have not had very good success with working with the township to fund projects such as this. So, you know, kudos to, you know, Daniel DeFranco, the township manager, as well as their commission, that they're on this. It's most appreciated, and I think it reflects the collaborative approach that we've taken, but more importantly is it does recognize the fact that this will benefit their residents as well as ours. So thank you to the township. I know they're not listening today, but when I see them out in the community, I will thank them. I'm also impressed by the fact that the pre-designed estimate of $4.229 million, which you alluded to, John, was compared to the bid of $4.334, $105,000 difference is not too bad. So
Don't give me that much credit. The 4.2 was kind of before construction. So those are three different points, the pre-design, post-design, and the actual bid. So it was, but yeah. close.
yeah, that speaks to me that there's good work being done here, that it's all aligning and well within the expectations in terms of variance. Back to Skipper's Excavating. And you mentioned that you've worked with them or you have experience with them or because this is a big project. And I think back to Campbell Road when we used someone who was kind of new to this work and that went south. And I just want to make sure that we're on board with it.
Yeah, very, very different level of confidence from that point. As Scott alluded to, I rely heavily on, does MDOT say that they're qualified to do it? Because they do a very extensive vetting process with their contractors, and then they reevaluate them every year based on kind of results. So MDOT says they're qualified to do this. Their bonding company is going to say they have the capacity to do this based on the other work that they have going on. We've worked with them as a firm and me personally on a number of occasions. They're fully qualified to do this. Yeah.
Good, thank you. Question on the seawall repairs that are in this project, as well as the other work that's been included, which I'm fully supportive of. What was I was trying to break it out. I couldn't break it out on my own. What is that portion of it costing wise?
200,000.
We have four items in there. They total 160,000 on the construction side because there's help me, Coughlin Park, Wiggs Park, Francis Street, Spear Street. So those four locations, they all have a different cost associated with them, but those total 160,000.
160,000. The reason I ask is because if I remember, back in the day, the DPW used to do that work on a pretty regular basis within the city. And I don't know if the city's in a position, if the DPW is in a position to be actually doing the work. I know that the skills are there. It's just I'm just putting that out there because then I see you kind of smile about this because we used to do that kind of work on a regular basis.
Yeah. Scott and his team have done a great job with stuff like this. There's definitely some convenience costs built into this. If the DPW had the time, I'm sure they could, do a good job
Yeah.
with most of this.
Yeah, again, I'm not putting anybody on the spot, just kind of rewinding the tape here in terms of what my experience has been with it.
Page 24, Russ, has the breakout for all
Thank
of
you.
those, so you can see.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think for Public Works, we always consider that, especially when we're bidding out any projects, or we're always evaluating, can we do this in-house versus, contracting these things out. For us, we still have quite a bit of work to do this spring, with fairly new staff members that we're training, and, we have the Chain Ferry arbors to complete and some sidewalk replacements, and projects like this can easily, if you're not doing this work routinely, then they can quickly become multi-week projects, which would be pretty upsetting for our crew. For that reason, we're gonna have to contract this stuff out.
Yeah, I just asked, it's just more of a, thank you for answering the question on that. Also too, just want to mention that the Muir email, which we received when they came to our strategic planning session a few weeks ago, brought up a number of comments about the sidewalk, and I still think there's some merit to some of the comments that they made about the usage of it and some of the connections to the other city sidewalks and so forth. So that's certainly something I'll be keeping an eye on. I'm sure the Muirs will as well. I don't see us retrenching on that. But just definitely they brought up some good ideas in terms of the usage and a perspective from the residents of the city that live and work on, or that live on that street in terms of their experience with it. Also want to channel Kathy Brockington. So most of you know Kathy. Kathy was very vocal when this project first was presented, wanting to maintain the rural, and I think John remembers, rural perspective or rural view of that street. And any improvement to it could be seen as it's going to turn it into something that it's not. And so I just want to always just kind of remember that that road used to be unpaved. Used to literally be a gravel road. And the trees, there's a particular tree right by the entrance to the fire district buildings. I know that's been discussed, and there's a lot of foliage and so forth up there that has a kind of a rural characteristic to it. And I know that Kathy and perhaps others that live up there would like to see if we can maintain as much of that as we can, so it doesn't look like a suburban street.
Yeah, I'll take a couple of those in reverse order. First, to the rural character, we definitely had that vision going in. We're not curbing the street. The sidewalk, is an urban element, but that's kind of separate matter, I think. We, in our design review, we went through every single tree that we were looking at. Can we save this? Do we need to remove this? Kind of presented the thought process, got kind of buy-in from the whole project team that the ones that we are removing are kind of the minimum ones we need to do to be able to walk away and say, we made this road safe, we made it functional, we did what we need to do as design professionals. On the sidewalk itself, I thought it was interesting. We met with the city, a little preview on Elizabeth Street. We met with the schools, I should say, a week or two ago, and they loved the idea of sidewalk on Maple Street. They say that the cross-country team and others are going to use that a lot. And they have the project kind of in the early stages of development, a Safe Routes to School project, that they would love to be able to put a pedestrian bridge over the ravine and kind of cross through to connect Maple Street to Elizabeth. Is going to potentially cut down a lot of, their commutes and things like that too. So they're very excited about both Maple and Elizabeth Street and some of the non-motorized things that the city is considering.
And a quick note, Russ, Kathy and John talked at one of the sessions and about the tree she was concerned about. So it was great that
Thank you.
she could get firsthand
Yeah, thank you.
perspective on that.
And the proposal is to have it on the west side of the street, correct? Correct. Yeah. So at what point does the city have to start thinking about easements and all those discussions and right-of-ways and?
Thankfully, everything we are building is within the
Public right-of-way?
Right away, with the exception of those water services that go to private property. That's not something you need an easement for. That's going to remain private property.
Okay. Thank you. Good work, everybody. Appreciate the effort.
Anything else before we move on? Agree. Thanks, both of you, Brian. This is great. This is really helpful.
Yeah, no problem. If you have additional questions, obviously we'll have this on Monday, but if you have any additional questions, send them my way and we'll be prepared for Monday.
Great.
Big project. I want you all to be comfortable with it. So, yep.
Takes us to Village Square, and that's you, I believe, Ryan, to talk about that, or is that Scott as well, or John?
Well, maybe a mix of all of us.
Okay.
So I'll kick it off and, so kind of just by way of background, as you all probably recall, right, there was a donor that came forth with kind of a request to look at resurfacing and improving the basketball courts, and indicated that they were willing to donate $100,000 towards that effort. And it was actually John Moxie suggested, well, that's a huge donation. Try to make it go further if we were to try to apply for a recreational passport grant through the DNR. And the donor was agreeable to that and supportive, was willing to wait, be patient, because that process takes a while. And so we were all before you last year with kind of a concept to do a larger project that involved kind of expanding the existing basketball court to make it more standard regulation size, to redo the tennis courts and keep them multi-purpose with being tennis courts and pickleball, but new fencing, make them more accessible from an ADA perspective, add benches, kind of some extra area outside of the courts, get rid of the kind of that half or quarter basketball court area completely, to kind of at least bring back some green space there, add a drinking fountain outside of the bathrooms, and then improve the landscaping with some rain garden options. And so you all approved us moving forward with a grant application based on that concept. Great news. We were, I think, one of 9 projects across the state that, so really fortunate to receive a $150,000 recreational passport grant from the DNR to really do that larger project. So it requires a $10,000 match from us. So we're looking at a $260,000 project, including, construction and engineering cost. So since that time, we don't have the grant agreement quite yet, but they've, said, hey, start firming up your funding and your professional services, and they're working on getting the grant agreement to us, and we're eligible to begin expending dollars. So I've talked with the donor. We've talked about the concept and answered questions there. They're comfortable with the updated concept that's in your packet, and they requested a donor agreement to kind of formalize this. And so a draft donor agreement was prepared by legal counsel and is in your meeting packet for your review. John has prepared an engineering proposal to kind of begin that design work and get us to a point of getting bids. And then, as you can see, Jamie's pulling up the concept here. Kind of a few changes that have been made since we last met. Nothing's finalized. We wanted to meet with all of you and get your feedback. So one of the pieces of feedback that we had received from the donor, as well as some others, is that you remember the previous concept had like a bright blue basketball court and a lot of orange. It was very bright. So I think it was just a concept, an idea of kind of matching the school colors. At this point, we're kind of proposing something that's much more toned down, some greens that would match more of the like playground colors, something that's maybe fits in a little bit better and is a little more subtle. And Scott suggested maybe some, maybe I'm throwing him under the bus if you don't like that color, but the maroon color was a suggestion of Scott's along the keys there, which I think it looks nice there. And then another change since you last saw the concepts were, you can see that the tennis court area looks a little different. And that's because we've received some feedback from some folks that were interested in seeing the tennis courts go away and being just pickleball courts. So the concept shows kind of a side-by-side pickleball court area and doing away with the tennis courts. And then the concept also shows kind of a commercial grade hoop to kind of show what that would look like as well. So one thing I want to make sure that I absolutely point out in this meeting here, because this came up as an issue during the playground, and and it was there, but it wasn't as, folks didn't feel like it was as clear. So one thing you can see on the concepts is where the existing courts are and, how they would be different. So those light dotted lines under the pickleball courts and under the basketball court, those are what, the change footprints would look like. So I want to make sure that I make that absolutely clear so we don't have any questions about that later on, because that was not a fun process for any of us to go through last time. So But other than that, I think we'd like to turn it, unless John and Scott, maybe, Scott, I know has talked with PPW at different points about the project, and obviously John and his team have been great about making some changes along the way, but.
Yeah, I think from the, the PPW's perspective, I can't speak for everybody on that committee right now, because we too would have to, formally review this plan, but initial feedback from them, and at least in relation to the pickleball courts, is that the idea of having the pickleball courts downtown versus, there's kind of this push and pull type of scenario where what is the school going to potentially do up with the tennis courts that also needs some work, but there's no commitments at this point to do anything with those courts. So it's a little early on that. So just keeping in mind that without knowing for sure what a future plan might look like for those courts, having the pickleball courts downtown, pickleball is generally a little bit louder than tennis. And so having that in the more downtown district versus the more residential district up by the school would make sense. And I think they would just like to see or really encourage a little bit of collaboration to hopefully have an end goal of maybe a tennis court, perhaps up at the school, and then pickleball courts downtown. Schultz Park, that park over there, it's all pickleball. And so if we converted this one into pickleball courts and then the school, for whatever reason, didn't have any tennis courts, and we're kind of losing that in the community. So just being mindful of that.
Questions? Chris?
Thank you. I'm looking at this, and if I understand, if you're looking at the two pickleball courts, there's kind of a white rectangle in front of them at the top and white rectangle below. Is that where the footprint used to be? Yeah.
This one right here. Yep, that is the current roughly off an aerial, so it's not exact, but approximate.
So I'm sure this is a stupid question. Is there any way to rotate those and then put a tennis court next to them?
Definitely all on the table. Sometimes we will do that. I know from a player standpoint, it's nice to be side by side instead of stacked, but potentially they could be stacked. Potentially they could be stacked with a tennis court next to them, all things that are on the table. Some of that's gonna have cost impacts, but yeah, definitely all still up for discussion.
Yeah, I hate losing a tennis court. I mean, especially if the school should decide not to do that, they have another need. And then on the rain garden, what is that?
So that is one of the things that scored us points in our application is finding ways to clean up stormwater runoff before it hits, the river ultimately. So this would be, usually it's kind of a depressed area next to the courts, kind of what's depicted here. This landscaping area would be kind of native, plants that like water. So we would run that water in there, and then they would overflow, into the road like what it does today.
Okay, but the plants, it's not going to be like wild growth or anything. It'll be maintained.
No, it would be maintained landscaping, just picking those plants that really like kind of that lush.
Then where you took out the half basketball court, would that be a place to have a tennis court? I know there's a slope there that's hard to work with, but it seems like there's a lot of loss of land that could maybe have a tennis court put in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's possible. We will be getting the survey here pretty soon, and we can do some concepts to review with BW or whoever. Will make sense to.
And then just for clarification, the amount, the 150,000 that we got from the Department of Natural Resources, is his 100,000 or whoever it is there 100,000 on top of that?
Yes,
So how much do we have here?
$260,000.
260,000
And we have
without the tennis court.
250 in hand with the recreation passport grant as well as the donation.
Oh, we've got two right now there's only one court there.
Mhm.
We've got two here. Why can't we make one a pickleball court and the one next to it a tennis court with a pickleball striping for folks that want to use a tennis court for pickleball? Because there are folks that use the tennis court now for pickleball. So you'd have the choice. You'd have, your regular course for what it is and one that can be used as a tennis, or if so choose, because we talked about that before, about just lining the tennis court, the tennis court with the markings like they've done here. And I see them there all the time. So I don't see why they wouldn't use it if it was the way I was explaining, so. That's a suggestion I could make.
Feedback, I think multi-use
Yeah.
courts have definitely been considered, but a lot of the feedback that I've received about multi-use courts is that they're pickleball and tennis, they may seem like you could overlay them easily, but they're just different. And I think net elevation is different
Right.
for each sport.
But they're using it as it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I see them there every weekend. There's a certain group that comes every weekend. There's a couple different groups that they come every weekend. I see them there
And play pickleball on a tennis
and
court.
play pickleball on the tennis court. I mean, because that's what they want to do there, It would give them the option. That's what I'm saying. You can make one, what I said is that you can make one. Another thing I wanted to ask is I wish that, because it looks like now, we're gonna do the striping in that parking lot. And, I'm there all the time at the flower shop. I'd say at least 3 or 4 days a week. And so I see a lot of activity there. That parking lot is in a bad shape right now. I don't know if you've gone through it, including the sewer lid that keeps coming off and we have to put it back on. And I know half of that is property owner and the half that you're talking about for the restriping and the handicap, that's all city owned. Is there any thought about resurfacing that or anything throughout this process?
You're running parallels with me, so you're thinking exactly the same way that I am on this stuff. So I think we've been quite a bit more aggressive with our resurfacings over the past few years.
Oh, you've been great with it. Yeah,
And,
you have.
and we're going to keep going with that. So
Okay.
this is definitely something that will be reflected on some capital improvement discussions coming
Right.
up. So we did, Wicks Park parking lot this year.
Right.
And then
Yeah,
the
that's
options
great.
to do that. And so, and then I think the gentleman that does the maintenance on the old Wilkins hardware building approached me last year, I think it was.
It's no longer James. There's a new person there in charge, which has done a wonderful job there of maintaining that area out there. So yeah, James no longer has that job, just to let you know. It's Mike Van Eyck who owns the bike store there. In the Elements Rentals. He's now in charge of maintenance for that building. So just so you have a new point of contact.
And if you ever have trouble with that casting on that manhole cover, let us know, okay?
Okay.
All right. I didn't know you guys put that back very often.
Yeah, it has been. We had a sign over it the other day so people wouldn't drive into it because we couldn't get it back on.
Thing pops off like crazy.
I mean, I guess I should called you or could said, Ryan, we were just having the conversation, so that's why I brought it.
So when I look at the motion for Monday, part of it is to approve the concept. So are we being asked on Monday to approve 2 pickleball versus 2 pickleball and a tennis, or 1 pickleball and a tennis, so that's the discussion for Monday. Okay.
And there's movement. We haven't completely decided one way or another yet, right? So it's more the concept of pickleball and tennis. I think.
What do you guys think about my suggestion?
Go ahead, you go first, Joe.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, I didn't understand there was even any difference in terms of the footprint. You're saying that there isn't, but maybe the net changes a little. And in any event, to me, if you can make a multi-purpose, all the better, right? And if you can't make them multi-purpose, then let's try and accommodate either the people who want to play tennis or the people who want to play pickleball in that location. That's just my own, kind of thought. But I mean, ideally, it just seems the more fungible we can make the project, the better off the community is going to be. We're never going to find,
Right.
100% people who want only pickleball. We're never going to find 100% people who only want tennis, right? So let's try.
And I
to
see
accommodate.
both people that use them.
Oh.
Like I said, I'm there 3 or 4 days a week at least. When I'm not doing events, I'm there more often, but I see people use that as a tennis court and people use it as a pickleball court.
So we
So
just set ourselves up for criticism if we do it just one way. I mean, if you do it all tennis, then pickleball, people are gonna have something.
And is there an option to raise and lower the net or something with a
Yeah.
little
That's what was
pin?
in my mind too, is if
Yeah.
you have something that, when you come to play, you could pick what you want to play. Well, I'll look
That
at
way,
that.
if you have different colored lines, kind of specify
Yeah.
a different court, and you can probably find somebody who understands how to make them distinguishable and just have some way to adjust the net and.
So the concept that we was exactly that. It was keeping the same, you know, and having it multi-use. And in fact, we had a concept that we, I think, discussed with all of you before we applied for the grant that involved keeping that and adding pickleball courts next to it. And you, at the time, were concerned that we were taking more of the green space in that area, maxing it out too much, and didn't like adding an extra pickleball court
We
there.
did have one communication and one person come to the meeting who suggested all pickleball, right?
Yeah.
Yep, we have had, yep. we have-
But I didn't see a big movement for that.
That was gonna be my observation. Well, I have a number of observations. If there's time, I would like to hear members of the PPW's view on this because, you know, they talk about this kind of stuff all the time. So I would value their input. Generally, I like what I see. I think if you staked this out, I think you'd find that in the current design, that area will be heavily utilized. I mean, I don't think you could put much more else in there based on you know, the dotted lines, which I think was wise that you put that overlay in. I have had feedback from business owners, you know, where you operate, Gregory, that half court that was right up against the parking lot was problematic.
Oh, yeah, I never did.
You know, the basketball.
I'm glad that's going.
Hitting cars and the like, so
Yeah.
that was problematic.
Because I park there all the time and get my basketballs out the door.
I'm not an expert.
It's not that well used, though.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the ins and outs of either of those racket sports. I think I've played pickleball once and, you know, I played tennis from time to time, but very rarely. I did not know that the high school might be moving away from having tennis courts. That's news to me. Because those I had always thought were a great resource and like a really nice part of town, you know, and we've got a good relationship with the high school and the school system. And I forget her name, the woman that did send the comment.
Julie Solo.
Yes. I found her letter to be very thoughtful and compelling.
It was.
So I did give her views a lot of credence based on her experience with both racket, well, with tennis in particular. So, I mean, I certainly would like to hear a little bit more from PPW because I feel they're a little bit more expert than me on park design. But generally, I like this. I think it does maximize the space. I do think offering something dedicated, I mean, to your point, Gregory, when I am, you know, there, I go to Teresa's studio a lot on Sundays, and during the summer, all I see is pickleball players. That's all I see. I don't think it's a fad. You know, I think it's here to stay. I think we have a national champion from Douglas or something. There's somebody that won like a big pickleball something. And
Well, too bad Lauren's not here. She's a big pickleball person, and I believe she's a proponent of the two pickleball based on what she has heard from other pickleball players, but we can.
Yeah, Sundays is usually when you see a lot of the pickleball guys.
The one, and I am sympathetic to what I'm hearing from some other council members is the bit about, you know, the loss of tennis courts. You know, I really like the idea that was proposed by the woman that wrote the letter to us. It was saying you've got a great set of tennis courts that you know, with parking and everything you need, you know, and pickleball I think does make sense here. It might be a little bit noisier, but I also think it's going to create less. I don't think you get the velocity or the distance out of a pickleball that you do. And once again, I'm not an expert on these racket sports, but you know, I think you're less likely to have tennis balls flying, you know, into the parking lot, into the road, whatever.
Oh, right.
You know, so I do think once again, I'd love to hear from folks that track these racket sports and the trends. I do think it would be a great amenity for visitors and residents as they move into this. I do, from what I'm hearing, this is a sport that folks as they get older are transitioning to from tennis. I guess it's a little bit less stressful on the joints and whatnot.
We have a lot of younger people here too. So.
Yeah, that's true.
But the idea only came to my mind when it was brought up about the high school. I had no idea that they might reconsider that. I know that I understand that there's a lot of maintenance needed up there, but that's the only reason why I brought it up. Otherwise, you know, I would have thought that, you know, just keep it as it is. But if there's some possibility that the school is going to get rid of their tennis courts, then we're not going to have any tennis courts at all. I mean, whether we're in the city here or I don't think there's any in Douglas either. That's all pickleball. So we would not have a tennis court, period. So I guess that's why the only reason why I brought that.
I mean, they may not have a dog in the fight, but I mean, this is another example. I think it'd be useful to, you know, in addition to hear from PPW, to have a conversation with the school district and say, look, we're thinking of, you know, basically doubling our pickleball capacity, but losing a tennis court. you know, what, could you give us a sense of, you know, we're not asking for promises, but, you know, we have cooperated with them, like on Parkland, for example, you know,
Uh-huh.
if there is a way to make sure that we can retain,
Yeah.
it's a significant number of tennis courts.
Yeah, it's a great area up there too, and I see people using it. Yeah.
If I can kind of net up what we're hearing is, can we get an adjustable net, which would make a share, you know, a dual court more attractive? And maybe, you know, Lauren or somebody can get a sense from the school if that's just, you know,
Yeah.
chatter or real. Anything else?
I'm sorry.
Dan?
Russ, I know Russ has a question, but just really quick, I guess I still don't understand what the downside would be of having multi-use courts.
I've heard from pickleball players that for what, and I don't know why, it's less than ideal. And maybe it's just confusing to tell which court you're
Well,
on, but I don't know.
If it's less than ideal, why is it always being used currently?
Because that's the only option right now.
I mean, I don't know, like I said, it's not the only option. There's options in Douglas. But it's still being used that way. So I don't,
Okay, well,
I don't see that as a big argument, that, I've heard it from a few people.
Yeah, I don't
It's
feel
being
like,
used.
I don't feel like I understand enough between purists for tennis versus purists for
Right.
pickleball, what.
And there might be a few purists
Yeah,
here,
I
but,
Have to have two pickleball courts? Could it be one pickleball court, one tennis court?
right.
I mean.
Oh,
has
that's a
to be two
no-brainer
pickle-
to me. Yeah.
so, do you,
I think I can help a little bit with this conversation. So
And then,
Ms.
real quick, okay.
Ms. Soa emailed both Mark Nedliger and I, in the fall. And so I'll read you some of Mark's response, which I think will help. So Mark stated that he's a tennis enthusiast himself, and I don't
Who's
think
that?
Mark,
Neidlinger?
the superintendent.
Oh, yes.
Watching far more than playing, I share your concern regarding the tennis courts. As you know, we just finished wrapping up our 5-year bond project that focused on updating the school itself so as to remain compliant with the current best practices in education, along with strong focus on safe and secure entrances. Unfortunately, the tennis courts were never listed in the original bond proposal project. We will soon need to look at renewing our sinking fund, which will be that'll be on the ballot, which could help fund the safe replacement of our tennis court surface, which has been on my list to address since taking office in January. So I'm not hearing anything from the school, at least in Mark's response, that's indicating they're looking to necessarily get rid of the tennis courts. I think he wants to find a way to take care of.
And like you said, let's say the parking up there too. That's a nice lot.
Yeah, good conversation. I've got a few thoughts on different things here, and I appreciate reaching back to Julie Soa's email because I respect Julie. She taught me how to play tennis on that court. She's been playing court sports her entire life. So the tennis courts, I think there's 4 at the high school, which can use some help. But no one knows they're there. I mean, if you're at the court downtown, it's being used for pickleball and you want to play tennis, there's nothing there that tells you there's a tennis court, literally a 3-block walk. So that's something we need to keep in mind too, is that might be something we can work with the school on, is to encourage use of those. And the parking aspect of this is important because I don't know the relative, there's 4 people that play pickleball typically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes two.
Yeah. Yep. So they have to park somewhere. So if you build more courts, you're just going to have more opportunities for people to use the courts and more challenges with parking. Whereas up at the school, there's plenty of parking. So I don't know if there's even an opportunity here to say, maybe put in 2 pickleball courts, work with the school, put 2 pickleball courts. They don't have a tennis club. Put 2 pickleball courts in up there and encourage people to go up the hill and use it because they can park easily and the courts are going to be easier to access, et cetera. I don't know, just putting that out there. A couple things on the actual proposal itself. There's a property owner that lives just to the east of the courts up on the hill, Bill Bleeker, who has texted me several times about the concept. He says this is coming yet. His concern is that, and we won't, sounds like, John, when will we get the survey?
So that's part of our proposal. We can survey a park like this when there's snow on the ground. So hopefully within a few weeks of giving us the green light.
Okay. The reason being is because he's very concerned about that encroaching on his property and digging into the side because his house sits right up at the top of the hill. So there's some concern there. So I just put that out there. Also, I've had a number of people come to me in that little basketball court that's being removed. You know what that used to be?
Shuffleboard.
Shuffleboard courts. And I would absolutely ask that we consider seriously, talk about a nice genteel activity for that space, shuffleboard courts. They used to be right across the street here from City Hall. Used to be right down there. I've already had several people that have already offered to donate money putting those in. I think that would be a super cool thing for the city of Saugatuck. They've done it in Chicago. It's gotten so much attention and so much activity. It's good for seniors. It's good for young kids. I mean, I just see a wonderful opportunity to harken back to our history and put something in there that would be just kind of fun. I'm not a paddleball player, used to play tennis, but I just think it's something that would just encourage all kinds of people to use it and relatively low maintenance for our DPW team. And I would seriously ask that we consider putting a shuffleboard court or two in there. It harkens back to our history, and that's what it used to be there. The other thing that's come up, and I don't know if it's a problem, if it's a misconception, but several people have asked me, why are we removing the fences that surround the current court and the fence that's being replaced? Is it going to be entire enclose the courts?
Yeah, the reason for removing the fence was just to change the size of the
Okay.
the paving.
Okay.
But the intent was to kind of do a U shape around both.
Good, so it's not going to close it off?
They're in poor condition anyway. They're dented and it's
Okay.
on a slope. The lawnmower keeps sliding down and going into it. And
The issue about actually changing the configuration makes sense then, John. Thank you. Because the other thing about this village square and in my mind, the less is more down there. I mean, we've got a very busy, popular playground across the street, attracts a lot of folks. But I also want to encourage, this place has gotten a lot of different uses over the years. There used to be square dances in the tennis court. There used to be just all different kinds of activities.
We've done
so-
festivals before too.
Yeah, we have art fairs. So this needs to be thought of as all kinds of different uses, encouraging people to use the place, even if you're not a pickleball player, tennis court player, or shuffleboard player. Make it relaxing and attractive and mostly quiet for the most part. That's really the attraction of a village green, which is what this is in the long term, in my opinion. The basketball court, two things. One is, do we actually need to, once we repave it, do we actually need to paint it? Can't we just put lines down and maybe make it a nice off-color cement? I don't know why we even need to paint colors. I'm just asking. Two is, I do want to bring up that there's been suggested that that area of this park be renamed for Mark Becken because of his
Yeah, it's
contributions
just
to the
been talked
community.
about with these previous councils, and our current council have still brought it up, as well as I have as too, Russ, to have this park dedicated to Mark Becken and his 40 years of service here at city council. I think we really need to keep driving that.
I think we talked about putting a plaque, not renaming it necessarily, but putting a plaque and honoring him with that.
No, thank you. Yes, some way to recognize Mark's not just contribution to the city itself, but also the schools. He was a varsity football coach and has really been involved with sports at the school. So the other question is the rain garden that's going, what's it called? The rain?
Rain garden.
Yes, thank you. As it stands today, you can just walk in and out of there. And I know there's going to be the proposal is to put a sidewalk to get you to the courts. Is that going to impact use by the art fairs and the craft shows? And it's going to have an impact on that, right? Because you're going to maybe lose some spots for people to put up their tents and so forth. So I just asking.
We can be strategic with our layout. We could work with someone that's in the know on what might work and what might not to, locate those, arrange those, just a concept, obviously. So, yeah, we can work around things like that.
pros and cons to it, and feedback that I've gotten, like the bushes in front of the basketball courts, at one point, they kind of outlived their useful life. So I
Yeah.
canvassed the area a little bit and got some feedback from like Santa Fe traders and some
Right.
folks in that area. And they're like, Scott, we need something there because it stops the ball from rolling out into the
Mhm.
street.
Yeah.
And so, in replacement of some, metal fencing or something like that, the landscaping will help
Right.
minimize that at least.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Santa Fe because Doug's been there for 35 years, I think.
Over.
Yeah, over
Yeah.
35 years. And you've got, of course, the businesses over at the old hardware store, as well as you've got, Maplewood. And I think it's worth it going around. Maybe it's the city manager going around and, maybe with Scott knocking on the door of these businesses and just kind of presenting this to them or just getting at least so you say, hey, we've asked you, here's what's coming, and just get the feedback. And maybe that's already happened, but I think that would just be a good neighbor thing to do.
Oh,
if we were going through this.
I don't mean to cause confusion by any means, but it has been discussed in the past about futsal. Can we agree that?
That's
no
off the
one-
table. We agreed
Got it.
at the last
Got it.
time when we
Okay.
talked about that.
Thank you.
About what?
Futsal, another sport.
It's
I
like,
have no idea
it's
what
like
that is.
soccer. It's
We
a.
talked about it when we first looked at this,
Yeah.
and decided
Heard
not
that
to.
term before.
Just wanted to get the feedback.
Just to reground us, the thought was on Monday, we were going to approve a concept.
Right.
So it looks like my sense of what Monday looks like is that we need to decide whether we do what's presented, adding in a tennis court. We do, instead of two mixed pickleball tennis with an adjustable net. And then in addition, so those are kind of, I think, the three options. And then do we want to figure out how to put a shuffleboard court?
I think there was an
there?
option of 1 and 1 too.
Okay, yep, you're right.
Yeah.
So we can all think about it, and just come to an agreement on Monday and we'll have the opportunity to learn from Lauren as a pickleball player, what her perspective is and the PPW rep. Yes, Russ?
So the concept, define what we have to say in terms of concept. Do we have to actually have a decision about court layout and court specifications at this point? Or can we just say concept wise, there's gonna be some kind of paddle sport?
No, I think
There,
we did
some-
that before. I mean, I think we need
I-
to nail this down. Is that correct?
If I may, Mayor, this has been troubling me because I think we're moving really quickly here, particularly on like radical changes to what staff have presented. So I had to just Google this just just to satisfy my own curiosity. Pickleball court is significantly smaller, 20 by 44 than a tennis court, which is 78 by 36. So allowing 4 pickleball courts to fit in 1 tennis court. So I think we need to be mindful that just because they're 2 racket sports with a net, the size of the courts is significantly different. So, I think we need to be thoughtful about that.
Sure.
So I mean, I think this is good. I would value more input. Well, first of all, I'd like, more input from, and I think it's a quick call with.
Yeah.
But Ryan just said based on the superintendent is, I'm based on what Nagler was saying, I'm not seeing any warning signs that we're losing tennis courts. I have seen them utilized quite heavily
Yeah, me too.
in the summer season
Yeah.
up in the hill. And I am very mindful that I can't deny what I see in terms of pickleball's explosive growth. And what a nice kind of combination you have of, a playground for younger people, a pickleball court for folks of our age and older that have transitioned to that, tennis for the hardcore tennis players. I do like Councilman Gardner's thoughts on shuffleboard, if it can be fit within the design. I think that's a very interesting idea.
Mhm.
But once again, I would need to, I think this is gonna look quite full. If you put some orange stakes down, even with this current design, I think you'd find it taken up, to the resident's point, it's gonna probably look big.
Mhm.
So but I think we may be, going down a rat hole in terms of thinking that pickleball and tennis are interchangeable. I really would like to talk to an expert about that rather than us say, like, let's make it do both, which is, I think, it's a great aspiration, but I'm just not sure based on just what I
Right.
got off the internet.
I know we have a lot of pickleball fans here, but like I said, I think that if the school is not interested in maintaining or keeping their tennis courts, that would make me lean towards having something that was a little bit, at least one of the courts transitional.
I'm not hearing that based on what the
Yeah.
superintendent.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, I never, maybe I didn't get my words correct. I think the point that I was trying to make was that the school doesn't have a definitive plan yet, not necessarily remove anything, but.
Yeah.
Ryan's got something to share, so I want to move it over to him.
I was just gonna pull up the other concept that we were working off of that showed the tennis court with the overlay, just to give you a sense. Oh, that's right. I don't know if Jamie will be able to blow it up enough.
You might have to zoom in a bit.
Otherwise I can put it.
So like I said,
It's in the- it's in there.
as far as I feel, if the school has no intention on getting rid of their court, then I have no problem with there being 2 pickleball courts. Cause like I said, it is a trendy thing. That was the only thing that.
I mean, if I can trust AI, the fact that 4 pickleball courts could fit in a single tennis court is a surprise to me.
Yeah.
Looks like we missed actually including John's proposal in here, so that's not very, all right, well, that was our miss on our part, so. Yeah, that's all right.
And to Scott's point, if you look at the, line to line, that's exactly right. You can kind of see visually that these 2 blue courts
Would
would
fit
roughly
in that
fit side by
space.
side here.
Yeah.
You can almost fit 4. That doesn't give you a boundary. So when you do 4 courts instead of 1 court, you've got 4 boundaries instead of 1 boundary. So it's close though.
But and for the courts themselves, the way they're oriented, again, I don't play pickleball, so I don't know how far the balls travel, but I know in tennis balls can, fly. Would it make sense to orient them the other way so the balls are not necessarily gonna fly out to the street, but fly into the parking lot or into the, you see what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Because it's with ball, you're exactly right. They don't fly as far as tennis ball, but a lot of times the backstop for a pickleball court is, a normal chain link fence height. It's not like a backstop is what I've seen. It's just not the expert in the-
Okay, anything new we haven't covered on this?
I think, and I don't know what John's team's capabilities might be, by like Friday when we might be looking to get the packet out to see if they might be able to get a few more maybe concept options together and.
Line drawings kind of
Yeah.
show them spatially what that, and by no means are we driving the schedule on this, to make a decision is totally up to you. Take the time that you feel comfortable, kind of coming together around a concept. We can get a survey, anytime. We just can't really start putting pen to paper until, the general direction.
But to get it into it in the construction phase, we need to.
Yeah, we don't want to take 3
Right.
months, but if it takes a couple meetings to get all that, that's fine.
Yeah, I think if you do some kind of renderings for us, I'd like to see, for sure, 1 pickle next to 1, tennis. And then the pickleball court fit into the tennis size so that they can, interact.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like we,
Have murdered it enough.
beat this one up.
yeah, let's, I think it's time to move on. To another one, Park Street, and I think it's kind of the same group of people. And that is on, I'm looking for where that is. On our
43, Mayor.
Page 43. All right, Ryan, you want to tee this up?
Yeah, so certainly it's something that's been, improvements to Park Street to make it, more pedestrian friendly and improving it from a non-motorized perspective has been talked about, I think, for many, many years. Just kind of looking at some of the history in 2005, looked like Felice and Vandenbrink had prepared a non-motorized mapping study, and then in 2020 that study was updated, and they really looked at kind of 3 different options: a separate sidewalk, shoulder widening, and kind of a hybrid approach, and some potential costs of that. And so I included a link up to that study in your memo, so you could kind of take a look, and for those of you that haven't reviewed it before, kind of take a look. So the next step, would be to really look at to do some further planning and come up with some conceptual designs and, kind of get some updated, topo surveys and to kind of see, take a look at what encroachments are there and, update some cost numbers and really kind of dig into some more detail and options. Our engineers had prepared a proposal. It was a $40,000 cost associated with it. You all approved applying for a grant through Eagles Coastal Management Program to help offset some of that cost. We were successful with that. In fact, I just got the grant agreement today, so you'll have that on Monday to review and hopefully approve as well. John has prepared an engineering agreement to kind of begin that next phase there. Maybe I'll turn over to him to kind of touch on what the work will involve. A lot of community engagement. Certainly looking at those, like I said, encroachments, which are going to be, you all know that's going to be a huge piece to this that, we're all going to take a lot of probably heat on, right? But I'll turn over to John to kind of talk about what the proposal entails and go from there.
Yeah, there have been probably half a dozen councils before you that have tried to undertake this task, and the two biggest barriers are cost and impact. So that's what we're going to try to kind of define for you as part of this process. It's hard to believe it's already been 5 years, I think, since we did the survey on Park Street. Our survey went from Campbell to Perryman, was kind of the area we started looking at. This is going to add Perryman to through Mount Baldhead, so that we can kind of look cohesively at the whole corridor. We know we've got issues at Holiday Hill that we would want to address at Park Street, because that's probably of all of the challenges in Park Street, that's probably the biggest. So a lot of meetings, a lot of talking with PPW and other, stakeholder groups, one-on-one with property owners as appropriate, just trying to, again, put a cost associated with those three options, and then kind of list one by one what's going to have to go to make room for, whether it's a wider shoulder or a separate sidewalk or some combination of the two, things of that nature. So that's kind of what's in here. We also have kind of a budget set aside to do some renderings. If that's important to people, our goal is to kind of get design as far as we can with that 40,000, whatever, avenue that takes.
Questions for John? Chris?
When we did from Mount Baldhead North, did we run into problems with sewer and water?
We did not. The sewer and water through there, and frankly, most of Park Street is newer in the grand scheme of the city. That's 1980s, which doesn't seem new, but it's new in the infrastructure world. So we're anticipating we're going to replace a lot of water services on Park Street, both ones that are the lead and galvanized materials, and the ones that are one service serving 3 or 4 properties. We know there are those, so that would be part of this, is to try and identify those as well, quantify those.
Thank you.
Other questions? Russ?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I think the earlier that we get to the people that live and have properties on Park Street to start the conversation, don't wait for them to find out what we're doing. I think the better. I've heard a few people talk about they've formed a Friends of Park Street group that may be out there to kind of be a proponent for or be a voice for Park Street and the people that live and own properties there. So I think the sooner we get in front of people just to start the conversation, the better. 2 is, if you look at from Campbell all the way up to Baldhead, that's going to dwarf the Maple Street costs. I can see this being an $8-10 million project. If you take it all on at once, everything that's got to go in with the easements and everything else. So I would also encourage us to take a look at what could we do immediately to take care of the issues. And the issues I keep hearing about, people having to walk on the street with strollers and beach chairs and so forth. And how can we resolve some of those immediate issues, like from the Chain Ferry to Baldhead, for instance, or Chain Ferry to Oval Beach? But then longer term, are there things that we can do maybe in phases, not tackle the entire project? So from a financial standpoint, a little bit more digestible, but 2 is just really kind of not, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it piece by piece, right? So I don't know. I just put that out there because that may be a easier concept for people to accept is, hey, my road's going to be torn up for 2 years, as opposed to we're going to take care of these safety issues first. Because I think there's some things that can be addressed first. And I've talked with several people that live over there, been there years, have said the city can simply do this to get space on the shoulder to get people to be able to move safely down the road. Why are they not doing that? So there's a lot of ideas and a lot of thoughts. And this is something where I think we really need to be very, very collaborative with the people that live over there and own property over there. They have a lot of great ideas. They've experienced all the stuff that we're trying to resolve. And I think the sooner we can engage them, the better.
Yeah, very, very good thought. We contemplated the kind of open house process has worked really well, I think. Some other communities, we don't get a lot of attendance at open houses. In Saugatuck, people are pretty engaged. So that would be something as people start coming back, for those folks that aren't here year round, we would want to do the same thing, just kind of spread out. Here's what we have to show you, what are your like, what do you not like? What should we be thinking about?
Yeah, and I would literally do that at the pavilion, or you could probably even get someone to host it at their house, right? There's a lot of people over there that would, I'm sure, be willing to host that. Don't have them come over here. Meet them on their ground, so to speak.
And you refer to PSSG in the, it's under the planning phase on page 46. What does that stand for? Is that the Park Street?
Study.
Okay.
Yeah, it took me, I had to reread this because we originally authored this like 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
When we First started going down this path.
What that was is, for people that don't know, the PPW committee actually had kind of a subcommittee
Okay.
that was assigned to Park Street. And so I think there was a lot of work, to Russ's point. I think there was a lot of work and collaboration, and I think, somewhat informal / formal meetings over, not formal because they weren't public, but at least a lot of the dialogues and conversations happened. I think they hosted some meetings at the yacht club, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm sure once we plug back into that information channel, we'll get a lot of information quickly.
Yes, you will. So our task on Monday is to vote on the budget, correct?
The engineering proposal,
Right.
and then we have the grant agreements in as well. So-
Right.
We had the 20,000 in the budget already for our part, right?
Yep, full expenses in there. We just actually have to add the revenue piece in, so.
Gotcha.
that'll help offset actually the budget positive. Just thinking, so I get the idea out now. I mean, we have a nice, beautiful pavilion at Mount Balda. That'd be a great place for the open house. But
Yep.
Depending on the time of year, yacht club, I'm sure would be available.
well,
too. Yeah.
yeah,
We own the pavilion. It's
Sure.
true.
Well,
Yeah.
save us maybe a little bit of the cost, but I agree, that could be another option there. But if we're in warmer months, that might be a natural spot to get folks together.
To Russ's point, before I lose it, cost wise, this is a little different project because I don't think we're gonna need to do a lot of utility work. One of the biggest drivers on Maple Street is that underground utilities storm and.
Oh, right.
So,
Right.
not that it's gonna be cheap, but.
Thank you, John.
It's scalable, it's not really proportional to.
Thank you.
If I remember correctly, I think a lot of the residents in that area, they really had a more of a vision of a blend of widened shoulders and in certain areas, and then concrete sidewalk in other areas. So that if there's large stretches where it is truly just widened shoulder, that'll help offset cost too.
Great.
I drive through there and go, oh, we could move that over that way a little bit. We could do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I do every time I drive through there, I think that.
Yeah, and one of the stakeholders would be the folks over the city line in Douglas too, because they've already kind of started down this.
Right.
When they replaced the culvert that failed, they kind of, made that long enough there. They've got something there now where people can get off the road as they cross the creek, so. Maybe there's something long term in your brains too.
Anything else before we move on? All right, thanks, guys. Okay, we are to the short-term rental licensing ordinance amendment. Grayson, thank you for your work on this.
So staff worked with the legal counsel to prepare the requested amendments that you guys made at your January 12th meeting. And those include adding a fixed license renewal date and a dedicated application window, which is to aid in reducing confusion for applicants and also to help prevent license applications from starting to creep into that busy season. There's also been limited administrative discretion for those untimely submissions that are due to extraordinary circumstances beyond an applicant's control. And those are pretty well defined in the ordinance. And then additionally, there's regarding that one-time amnesty being incorporated. We tried to do that in an equitable way that addressed and best represented what we were hearing your concerns were. And that was seeming to be really for those who had some difficulty understanding those renewal dates, but still made it through good faith effort in applying and otherwise complying with the ordinance itself. So that is also outlined in the ordinance presented, and Jake or Ryan may want to add a bit more to that, but.
So one, just making sure we're clear. So what we are capturing is people who, whose license expired on April 30th, were supposed to apply by March 30th. Provided they applied by April 30th, they are caught in this. But if they applied in June or whatever, they aren't captured by this. Great. Okay. All right.
Yeah, the only thing I think that I would add is Grayson did some great work in kind of evaluating other, options as far as application periods. He did meet with the fire department, maybe to want to touch on kind of what you found through that process. I know there was some discussion last time on that.
Yeah, I did meet with the fire department and they kind of seem to be in the same place as it sounded they were last time, that it would be a bit too much for us to try and take on all of the applications at the beginning of the year or within a few month period. They expressed that there's a lot of other rentals in the township and in Douglas too. So just kind of keeping it spread out is easiest for them. And then it also doesn't prompt the other surrounding areas to also try and do the same thing as well, and then create a very significant amount of workload for them.
Just a quick question. How much does the short-term certificate cost?
It's $540.
I'm sorry, could you speak up just a little bit, Grayson?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time hearing.
Absolutely.
And how many do we have?
Oh, great question.
It was in the
Ballpark.
last packet
Yeah.
we had. I can look.
259, 270.
Just 267 sticks in my mind.
Yeah, I think that sounds,
And to that point, the 525 fee, that's on top of the renewal fee, correct?
Correct.
And do we know, do we have a count on the number of properties that this is in scope for?
There were 9 that were presented during that
9?
annual overview, but with these provisions written in as they are, I believe that would disqualify 2 of those properties.
So 7 properties will be made right,
Yes.
essentially.
As of that date.
Yeah.
So in other words, if more came in after that date, then the number would go up,
Right.
up until the point this gets.
until we sign,
Yeah.
until this passes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Grayson, thanks. Great job. I think you captured what we discussed at our last meeting on this subject. Just turn it over to Jake real quick though. Jake, any observations, thoughts you'd like to share with the council?
No, I think they've been presented pretty well already. If there's specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. I did draft the amendment, so that's in front of you, and I believe it's in red line, so you can see the departures from the existing language of the ordinance, what was added, what was kept.
Okay, thank you.
A quick question. I just multiplied that out and that brings in $1,440 a year. Who does that all go to? Does it come to the city?
Yeah, so the fee was increased significantly to offset those costs that went into all the legal fees and et cetera for the short-term task force, Granicus, and the actual drafting of the ordinance itself originally.
Decimal point in the wrong place.
Yes.
Everyone.
So Chris, all of that in our packet for January 7th has the, I think we were within $112 of spending everything, and it also had the number of licenses.
And we can't make like a profit off our fees. So the penalty fees obviously are penalty fees, but yeah, so the fees are, yeah, we're set to, essentially recoup our costs was kind of the direction from council. There's one additional piece that probably would be good to mention too on this kind of act of God kind of option that you all asked for last time. It's written narrowly, right? I mean, these are, only, certain circumstances outside of really somebody's, they're extraordinary, right? They're not, just negligence or missing a deadline or something like that, that would allow for an exception next time. But there's a little bit of we did expand this to apply not just to short-term rental, renewal application dates. But there was some thought that, well, what if you apply for your renewal or you're applied for your short-term rental license and, something happens to you and you're not able to get that, an act of God, with something that meets this ordinance language happens to you and you're not able to, get the fire inspection done or, get the necessary items back to Grayson within that 14-day period. So this would apply to kind of a broader set of deadlines in case something happens besides just the renewal deadline. I want to make sure that that's clear and that you're all comfortable with that piece too. So.
Thanks.
And Russ for the win, 267 licenses.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's spot on.
I do want to say that I'm very proud of the council and particularly the city staff for responding to requests from our community. This is how this works, in my opinion, is that they brought an issue to us and we studied it and we came up with a solution, which based on what I've heard, this does correct the situation that we have, and that is also going to make it easier to manage going forward. So I just want to say thank you. And thanks to those that, brought this to our attention. I think we did the right thing.
And we did hear from a couple today on Sugar Hill.
Sugar Hill, yes.
And so I am not inclined to give a one-off exemption. I don't think that's consistent with how we've approached this.
Completely different circumstance in my view.
Yeah,
If
I agree.
I've read it twice and visited the property,
Yeah,
while it was, being built and after it was built. And to my understanding, building a house without having a business license in hand,
right.
I don't think it's at
I
all.
mean, I feel bad for them on a personal level, but
Certainly, but certainly, but no, I think that would open a huge Pandora's box.
Yeah, I think it would open a
completely
huge
completely upend the ordinance.
Yeah.
I had an intention to do this but didn't have the license or didn't have any assurance that I would have a license. But now I want I know.
Yeah.
No.
I agree. All right, anything else? We'll vote on this on Monday. Thank you, Grayson. Appreciate the work.
Thank you, Grayson.
Okay, that takes us to,
Mayor, we have a raised hand. Could you let them know we have a public comment?
oh, Nick, whose hand is raised, we have a public comment session coming. We have one more agenda item, and then we'll have another public comment session, and please raise your hand then and we'll call on you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. Okay, so review of goals, priorities and for fiscal year, and I think Holly Engel and Dave Engel are still there to talk about their request. So if we can we make them bigger on camera? So, or no, I mean, we don't have to.
Yeah. Don't make me any bigger.
That's fine. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. Ryan, you want to tee this up at all or?
Yeah, I thought we had a really great kind of strategic planning session on January 14th and really appreciate everybody's time. We spent time kind of going over where we're at mid, fiscal year on this fiscal year's priorities. We went over the master plan survey results. I think Marilyn did a great job with kind of facilitating, and she's prepared a report that's in your packet that kind of summarized that day. So based on the priorities that we discussed at your strategic planning session, I created a kind of a one-page graphic that kind of summarizes what we're looking at as far as the priorities for next fiscal year. And as we've talked about today, and we didn't even talk about all the projects we're working on today. We have a lot of priorities that really are in progress that we're working on that are pretty heavy lifts. So we kept them within the kind of goal areas that you had previously established. The priorities that are marked essential are based on just the council member votes. So you may see in the Maryland's report, she may have added some numbers together. She kind of included also, staff votes will, I think it's, ultimately you set the priorities, and I think it's best that you ultimately, your votes are the ones that ultimately are the final determination. So the highest from council have essential next to them, and then you would also ask for any that are regulatory in nature that we have to make sure and do because of a regulatory requirement that was noted as well. So today's an opportunity for you to have further discussion on the priorities that are before you. Discuss if there's any that you would like to take off, any that you might like to add, and then ideally we might vote on these on Monday so staff can kind of start preparing a budget around these to present to you. It's kind of the next phase with this. Just a reminder, and I can appreciate that the Ingles are here today and understand their requests, and I've explained this to them on Monday as well, that we have a lot on our plates as it is, and we're quite maxed out plus some right now with projects. And so I ask that you at least keep that in mind as you're considering whether or not to add any additional priorities, that if you were to add priorities, what should come off the list, and be of equal time and resources, and kind of weigh out what that give and take looks like. So.
Great. So, Dave and Holly, you want to talk about what you are proposing?
Well, you want to bring it up, Holly?
Yeah, can I share my screen if that's all right?
So we've been approached or had the opportunity. There's been, we're going back a few years when this all started. Let's go to proposal one. Let's not do any of this.
She's got it. She's doing it.
Okay. So we've been approached we went back and forth trying to find a way to keep the charter boats in Saugatuck. If anybody needs to know the value of them, we can discuss that, but it sounds like we're, kind of pushed for time. The things that we do and bring to the table, we want to keep, the salmon in the classroom, keep planting salmon. And, we have that pen project that's going on this year where we're going to raise 125,000 fish. We take a 6th grade class fishing every year, along with bringing about 500 charters a year into town who, have to rent a room, stay somewhere, have lunch, do whatever. So the dollars and cents, and there's math out there to show all that. But we approached, we'd gone back and forth with the other Ryan, and we wanted to get back with Holly and the new regime that's in there. We didn't want to push it. We're still looking for a way to stay in town, and it was brought to my attention that maybe we originally wanted to go down to Coghlan Park there, because there's monies available, which you guys can discuss grant wise. There's monies available to help maybe fill some needs for all of us, not just the fishing world, but to build a bathroom and a fish cleaning station for all the boats that are in town, and a public service, because we just don't have any facilities in Saugatuck. There's basically our private one, and that's it. But what we got excited about is we were offered by a private individual to make the Wicks Park available for possible transient and or a good spot for the charter guys. That's kind of funny, because that's where we started out back in the early 80s. We started out in that exact area, is where we were, and having like 2 slips installed, or 2 docks installed that would accommodate 4 charter boats in that area, and just have a fish cleaning station, at the back of one of the boats, and a place to hang the fish up and stuff. We can get more elaborate, but that would be other than the fact that the city would have to have sewer and water and electric brought to there. So it's not free, but all the rest would be paid by privately. That would be done. And I can tell you who it is. Mr. King has offered to do this for us, he sees value in us and would like to keep us in town. And he's offered to donate this to the city, put these two docks in and make it where 4 boats could be. And it would drop in there. It's got a footprint. That's not the exact one that you got up there. It's got the footprint. You'd get rid of 6 small docks that you have there, have 4 large docks, and still have the remaining 4.
Yeah.
We have 4 more remaining docks. So that would be cost free, other than getting this. Yeah, there you go. That would be cost free to the city, and would accommodate, all of our needs. No reason, and we would, you would recur more money because you have power and water there, much more money for the slips than what's there now. So that's proposal A. The monies that we know that's available, the options, there's several options that we discussed. And I guess, what would you like to discuss about that, Holly or Ryan, after our discussion? What did you see most feasible?
So yeah, just to net up, so the city would be responsible for the water, sewer, and electricity. That would, and then the the bigger docks would be donated. The advantage to the city would be, in addition to the commercial fishing, would be we could charge more for those docks because they would have water, sewer, and power.
Yes, sewer being that we would just have one fish cleaning station, it would handle the same amount of fish that it's handling now. That fish cleaning station that we have at 650 Water Street now, you know, used to accommodate 16 boats, and it's accommodating 4 now. So that should not be a Cal Lake problem, I wouldn't think. That was one of the issues that come up in the last proposal, you know, or discussion that came up. And you know, if we make it a municipal area, you know, make other docks and you just go online and book them and make it transient, you know, because the city's always looking for transient, and go with big docks all the way down there. You know, that was the second proposal, and then have a fish cleaning station with bathrooms and, you know, all the amenities right there in that park. So that's would be a grant thing. You know, none of this is going to happen next year. We know that it's out, but we know how long it takes to do all this stuff. So we were excited, you know, to have that opportunity, and thought the city should, you know, be aware that it's could be a, you know, a win-win for everybody. And, you know, how do you feel about it? And then Ryan brought up the fact of going back to the original plan of having a nice facility down in the marina area at the end of the street there at Coghlan Park, you know, and have, you know, kind of 2 birds with 1 stone, have a nice big bathrooms that would accommodate the park. And on the backside, have a fish cleaning that would accommodate all that boaters up and down the docks there.
This is like an example of it. So it's not, I mean, if you go to every port from, I mean, go up and down the lake, we are the only harbor that does not have this type of amenity for public use. And, you know, it would kill 2 birds with 1 stone, essentially. If Saugatuck has always needed restrooms down there, this would be, if you look at the backside, and this is a bigger scale, you guys can make it what you want, you know, aesthetically pleasing and what tailors to Saugatuck. But Great Lakes Fishery Trust will fund the cleaning station side of it for public use and our commercial use or whoever. And then the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund, and they have the park amenities, including like bathrooms. So it'd be like a dual grant applying. And like Dave said, it's not going to happen overnight, and we know that. But what we don't want to do is be out of house and home. So we know our lease is up in 2027. So if we can be ahead of the game right now to say, this is what we'd like to put on the table, start planning it, start getting ideas together. What does the city want? What's the best thing for, you know, everybody locally? What makes most sense? Start applying for those grants. Because I think, Holly, you said that if we want to apply for the grants, we have to do it by the summer and get that money in pocket. So next year we can start actually, you know, working on this. You guys have a full plate. We're aware of that and cognizant of it. But, you know, where do we want to go to really make Saugatuck as good as it is?
So, you know, 2 different options, obviously different lists in terms of, you know, resource from the city, you know, people power and money. You know, the point is, you know, to serve the commercial fishing industry, which is, you know, part of our economy. Coghlan Park, I mean, the, you know, advantage of that is that, one, it could accommodate more commercial fishers. And we could, you know, get bathrooms but the downside of that is that would be a huge project. And both from a resource and, you know, people resource as well as financial resource. So just wanted to get that out there. People can ask questions and we can, you know.
Yeah, so go ahead, Joe.
So has the concept been, I'm just trying to understand how far thought out this has been. So I understand at a macro level, there's city makes some investments, there's some grants, and it sounds like the commercial fleet will make some investments. And in return for widening, having larger slips. Now, would that be then like some kind of guarantee that they could always have those slips, or
That would be our hope. I mean, we're fourth generation charter fishing. I mean, right now it's unsettling because we don't want to bring our business to South Haven or Holland, and we don't want to remove the Salmon in the Class project or the Net Pen project or our tournament where we have 65 boats that come in mid-August. And Ashley Siebling was on the call, but Lisa Mize has been very instrumental with that, where we raise a ton of money and give back to the community. And it's just, we don't want to bring that to a different community. This is our house and home. And so
100%, all for it, 100%. You
Our
won't
goal
be
would
arguing
be-
that.
Yeah, our goal would be to be guaranteed, or at least have a 5 or 10 year or 15-year lease where it's not, hey, you might get kicked out of house and home in 1 year because that's all we're going
First right of refusal or something like that. Yeah, we'd want some kind of guarantee to help, with the, especially if it's the, we're bringing everything to the table one, where we get the docks installed and all that stuff, and have some kind of fish cleaning. And but the city really needs to, at either spot, we have a diagram of the other one, and we've been there with Scotty, and I don't know if Scott's left yet or not, and this has been discussed for a couple of years. This has been going on. Can you share that to her, or will it let us share the other diagram? It would be nice for them to have a picture of that too. But
So it would be a long-term lease where the
Long-term lease.
long-term lease where they would be potentially paying commercial, whatever the
yeah,
commercial
going,
rates would be.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, we're gonna
That's what I just wanted to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna pay our lease. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
we'd rather pay it to the city than we're not that we have any bad blood, but we'd rather, it's not, we're not asking for free slips.
No, I'm just trying to understand what's being presented, and thank you for that.
So there's always a need for, the city has always felt a need for transient slip. Right now, you have 4 slips at Coghlan Park that you let Sergeant's Marine lease out in theory to transients. I'm not sure that's the case, that all of them are transient, but they existed there, and that was brought to our attention. Mr. King put them in before he sold to the park to the city, and that they were there, and they're powered and watered from Sergeant's Marine. So they kind of control that, and they get part of the take and all that. But the way things are going now, most of this stuff is booked online. Even if you want to book any municipal up and down the lake, you go online, you book it, you pull up in your slip, so on and so forth. So it would be kind of unmanned and easy to do at either spot, either Coghlan or here, and get much more value in transients, and because they're kind of small slips. They're way inside of upstream and downstream boats that are there. And the reason they're not very popular, or even sometimes hard to rent, if I'm not mistaken, is that they don't have power and water. You kind of need that to go with it. So that's, something that really needs to go in there regardless, just for the value, or even to accommodate, a better class of boat and bigger boats and stuff. And the design, we just went off the Google Earth and kind of draw this stuff up and, come up with a concept. And it's phase 1. Let's face it. Let's something to talk about. Let's get on the agenda. Let's move forward. Either get poo-pooed or move ahead.
Okay, Ryan, I think he has something to say, and then Scott, you next.
Just want to caution all of you, today is not a day to kind of decide or even really debate locations or it's really more about a threshold question, like I would with anybody that approaches the city with a project. The first thing we look at is this something that the council's already prioritized, and is the council okay with us spending some time working on this and evaluating that? And that would be the next steps. If you want, make this a priority, it would be looking at location options. It could be other locations we look at, and what are some potential costs, and what would it take to have water and sewer and electricity run to wherever the potential slips are at, and is a lake fine with it, and how would we recoup our investment? And today was just more of a natural time for you all to really make a decision on whether or not it's something that you think should be on our priorities list, and if so, should something else be removed? What would it take the place of? That sort of thing.
Yeah. First of all, I'll start by saying, I really do think it's important that charter fishing, commercial fishing stays in Saugatuck. I'll start with that. My gut reaction, though, is that Coughlin Park is a better fit for this operation. And this was the path that the city was going down when the situation appeared to be much more urgent. And we thought we would lose some charter fishing businesses because of the sale of that property where they are now. Fortunately, for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And so there was a bit of a reprieve. But I do know Scott and Helen Baldwin were working this issue with an eye toward Coughlin Park. So I would be in favor of, if it's possible, to dust off the Coughlin Park plan wherever it left off and to see if that's viable. I have some concerns about Wicks Park, to be honest.
So, I know it's Dave's wedding anniversary and he has a date with his wife. Do we need them longer for sort of this threshold question? And if so, let's get our questions for us.
Yeah, no, thanks. Hey, Dave and Holly, it's Russ Gardner. And by the way, you've been married that long to Liz?
42 years.
42 years.
Wow.
And she
I
said
knew Liz when
months later she's gonna beat you up when she gets home. So you
Yeah,
might wanna
really.
take that into
I knew Liz
consideration.
when she was a Wilson. So
That's right.
congrats, Dave, and say hi to Liz for me.
I will.
Won't ask a lot of questions, though I do have many. Appreciate you coming back with this. And, 27 seems a ways away, but my perspective is that's going to be on us faster than we know. And I know Dave and Holly and Hunter and the rest of the Engel family really would like to see some action on this. And as to where this ends up, I will commit to saying we need to make sure that we work to keep this type of business in the community. I can't imagine there not being a charter fishing industry in the city of Saugatuck. It's never been that way in my life. I know things change, but I think this is something we can work through with them. And I would say make this a priority to figure out how we can make this work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, if there aren't questions for Dave and Holly, we can let them go and then we can talk more broadly about priorities. And if we agree we want to make this a priority, what do we want to take off the list? So, thank you both.
Thanks, Dave.
For the
Thanks, Holly.
and tell Liz I owe her a piece of cake for making you 15 minutes late.
Well, no, it's fine. We appreciate you just taking the time to even hear us and just let us know, who would be our contact person? You, Holly, or how would you like, Ryan? How would you like to move forward with this?
Ryan, I mean, either, you can reach out to both Ryan and me, that's fine, or just Ryan if you had to pick one of us. But, I am named Holly, so I know that's familiar.
So Ryan, you know the deadlines of this grant, then that we need to probably by then have some kind of an idea to get started.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
Yeah.
DNR is April 1st, but there's also the fisheries trust fund that they're referring to as I think in August is when they have a due date
Do
for.
we have to make a decision for them to go forward with that grant based on what we've seen right now?
No,
You today,
Well, if the grant's got to be in by April 1st, they're going to have to.
August.
Yeah, this is there's a separate grant fund that they've kind of found, and I've talked with some folks previously on this. So that grant application would be due in August. So yes, this would be something that would move up on the prior to this. So Dave, to your question, the council has to, again, finish their discussion on whether or not to add this to the priorities list, and assuming they do, and then I'm good to work on this, then yeah, we would talk more. So.
Well, we let it slip through the cracks last time, and I want to do whatever we need to do to help.
Great. Well,
Okay.
thanks. Yeah, have a good evening and we'll follow up with you after the meeting to see if it's on the list.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy anniversary, Dave.
Thank you.
All right, so priorities. Thank you for the graphic, Ryan. It's really helpful and it's a visual improvement over the current year graphic. So I'm assuming we've all had a chance to take a look at it and so two questions overall. Are we comfortable with this? Does this reflect your memory of our discussion. And then with the discussion we just had with Dave and Holly, do we want to add, do we want to add, I don't know how even to call it, fish dockage? And if so, what would we remove from this to make room for that? And it would have to be something bigger than the AED installation.
Well, it's not quite there, but I would say under Parks and Recs, upgrade restroom interiors at Village Square and Wicks Park and just, bundle this with a bathroom project for Coughlin Park, which is well overdue. Would be my suggestion. I'm much more in favor of the Coughlin Park work that was done. I think it makes much more sense because there'll be winners and losers if you change Wicks Park. There are a number of residents, myself included, that participate in the lottery for a boat slip at Wicks Park. So sometimes I get one, sometimes I don't. But suddenly it's going to basically give some residential slips to a business, which is a choice for the council to make.
Just for a question, where they're at right now, on over there that's now being torn down, they can stay there till the 27th. Are those permanent slips for those charter boats? And they lease them? Is that what she was saying?
They lease their stuff.
There are other charter boats in Coughlin too. The Engels are not the only ones
Right.
that are in operation. They're the ones that are impacted by the sale of the old laundry. boat.
Right,
Yeah.
but all of those that are along there, those charter boats.
In that area.
They're
I
wanting to
believe.
find then a place either at Coughlin or Wicks to replace those, so we would not be renting them to anybody else. They would just be rented. They would be leased. as
Long-term
charter
rentals.
boats, long-term card. Okay. Yeah, I'm not comfortable with Wicks Park. The problem with Coughlin is, everybody's talked about that for years to try to pull it together really fast. For me, because we've talked about having an amphitheater and bathrooms and everything. But whatever we do, I'd like it at least so that's a stage, so if we want to do more, it can be added on to. But, because right now all they have is just that little cleaning thing with water and sewer, right? They don't have bathrooms or anything.
Right.
You're talking about the current
Yeah, where they're at now.
The current fish, and this was a problem I believe former council member Baldwin ran into is, I think Eagle was quite surprised that they basically had a garbage disposal that was just basically grinding up the fish remains and just putting them right in the lake, which is why you would see massive catfish and pike hang out when fish cleaning was happening around that area.
And my
And
cat down
I
there.
think there was a concern, if I remember what former council member Baldwin said from Eagle about replicating the Bassomatic type situation for the fish cleaning station. So could be a more significant cost. Another thought though about Coughlin Park is the dinghy dock. The dinghy dock's a great amenity when it's used properly. I think we've learned from the damage that was done to it and to the increased boating pressure that we have, which is a great problem to have in a community like this, but it's not being used by dinghies. There are boats well over the size of dinghies that are staying there as long as they can get away with staying there. So that probably, if we were going to do something for charter fishing and a fish cleaning station and a bathroom, we might want to rethink that. It's a big project. It is a big project. It's a big project.
And I think Chris makes a good point. It would have to be phased.
Yeah.
Likely to be phased. So if we were to, as you look at the current things on the priorities, so Scott's brought up the upgrading the restroom interiors. I will throw out for consideration, pushing off the bald head stair replacement, just moving that out a year or two. And the conducting the town halls with businesses, and another on taxes, pushing that out as another year or two as possibilities for what we could move off the list.
I guess I'd ask Scott how he's feeling about the Mount Baldhead steps. I know we had to make it a priority to get those steps in shape for the Mount Baldhead Challenge. They were getting pretty bad. I remember meeting with Renee Zita, and she was right, because I was walking them with her, and yeah, they were really getting in bad shape. I don't know how many years we can still get out of them.
Yeah, I think we're getting beyond. We've done some pretty extensive, we've had guys underneath the steps digging out sand. Anywhere where those steps are in contact with wet sand, they're pretty well advanced in decay. So we've scabbed and kind of sistered in some stringers alongside of existing ones, and pretty much most of what's there except for posts.
Okay.
But even the posts have decay going down the middle of them. They really should have been capped. But
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, excuse me. I could see on operations, public health and safety drop in the bottom 4. Implement the deer call, begin full zoning code update, install outdoor AEDs and conduct town hall meetings. I could see those going. Just my opinion. And then under the infrastructure, evaluate long-term funding options for the CIP AMP. And then the further sidewalk repairs and resurface roads, that's just kind of ongoing. I don't know.
Routine maintenance.
Yeah, that's just kind of routine maintenance, so, yeah, and I know it's huge and you can't really cut back on that, but, beyond that.
I personally have a hard time evaluating this easily, just as I've said at several of our meetings in our strategic planning session, I have no sense at all of where we are organizationally in terms of the commitment that Scott's team, Jamie and her team, Grayson, have on their plates already in just the day-to-day operations of the city. So, and the manager for that matter, you know, I have no sense of, you know, what the commitment would be from a timing standpoint. Costs, we're kind of get a sense on some of these, but how, you know, realistically, how can we get all of this done? And we don't have a timeline specifically on this. So that's what I struggle with is, you know, like the upgrade restroom interiors at Village Square and Wicks Park. That to me is a must do. That to me is a must do. So, but again, I don't know what the timeline is on that. I don't know what the cost commitment would be. Is that something that the DPW would do, or would we contract out for that? This is the kind of thing that I start to, just from a experienced project manager standpoint, this is incomplete in terms of being able to make some of those decisions because, you know, Ryan, as the manager, you know, you've got a responsibility to get this stuff to happen, right? And, you know, you've got staff who have probably 90% of the capacity is already used just in day-to-day operations. So up and above that, what do we really have realistically to be able to do?
Well, I think what we discussed at the priority session was that we didn't have capacity really for more. And I think what's before you is, you know, a lot of things that were just kind of either we've gotten started or we're mid-project on, and we talked about some of them today. I mean, they're big projects. And so what I'm telling you today is that I don't have more capacity for staff or me. And so what I'm saying is that if you know, want us to focus on, and I can appreciate what the Ingles are asking for. I think there's some bigger policy considerations that you all have there, and that there's other charter fishermen in the community as well. And would, you know, solve a concern for, you know, not all of them. And potentially, I mean, certainly a fish cleaning station could benefit others. And I know Coughlin Park is interested in a restroom there, but to your point, I think we've also discussed maintaining, replacing and repairing what we have as well. And I think you saw through the master plan survey results, there were folks that had an interest in those Village Square and Wicks Park restrooms and seeing some improvements there too. But I'm telling you, we don't, at this point, I wouldn't be very, you know, I'd be frustrated if there was something added and nothing of like similar value taken off, because it's going to take quite a bit of, I think, evaluation to look at what's the right location. And obviously there's dollars and time involved in writing grants, reviewing grants, applying for the grant and getting cost estimates together. So some of it's, you know, we have our firm with Fleece and Vanderbrink, but I know I have them quite busy right now with a lot of projects. And as much as they take on some of the work, it's still a lot of work on our part in reviewing what they're sending back and considering it and discussing it and thinking about it and having the time to really make sure that we're being innovative and we're being thorough with the reviews that we have on things.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking you to all lay out, so.
You had to I mean, in terms of size, so, you know, I mean, I was kind of joking, but not really, you know, saying, oh, well, we'll take the AED installation off and just use that time. We know that wouldn't work.
Correct.
What magnitude, like what are some of the things, either a couple of things or single things that we aren't in the midst of doing? So obviously we aren't going to take Maple Street off. Is there anything on here that's of a similar magnitude that if we decided we wanted to pursue this would be an equivalent lift so we don't
Yeah, I think you're getting into the combination of your planning and replacing of bulkhead stairs and the river deck, and you're upgrading your restrooms, and really a combination of those two are really the kind of, because it's, I know some of the other things that were mentioned under operations, public safety aren't necessarily hitting the public works department, and they're a huge piece of this conversation.
Right.
That we have there, and I think it's to that level, and there's a lot of negotiation that would have to occur with with this project, and yep.
We take great care in moving forward with projects, and we take a lot of time.
Yeah,
And we have a lot of public input and everything.
Sure.
This is too fast for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is an ongoing discussion.
Okay.
I think it will be helpful. And maybe we wait one more, workshop. We do need to give staff sort of what they need to develop budgets for.
I would say another one to consider, I mean, obviously you're updating your signage and the wayfinding, that's gonna be a pretty significant project, that's gonna take a lot of time and, but, wayfinding is something that I think goes along with the parking improvements, and there's been a request for that a number of times as well.
Yeah.
I think Joe wanted to go first.
Yeah.
I'm with everyone. I see the value of maintaining, charter fishing fleet in town. I go out on, I've been on Dave's boat, so I'm all for it. And I hate to be the one that's gonna make this more complicated than it probably needs to be, but I personally think, and I think Scott's mentioned it before, we need to be looking a little bit more broadly than just, the charter fishing, right? The transient boat world, every single town, and I know we're kind of flirting around with this economic impact study, right? Which to me should be one of the things that drives where we want to go as a community in terms of how we're going to support the marine world and the economy that flows away from that. I mean, I think you're going to find that there's a lot of money that comes into this town through transient boating. And I think that whatever we do when we're looking at how to repurpose slips or even grow the availability of transient slips has to take it beyond just charter fishing. And from my perspective, if I were doing this in a thoughtful way, I'd want to first understand the economics of it, which we may have coming at us. Then look at what we have available to us and then make some informed decisions of, how do we want to accommodate more than just the charter fishing fleet, right, with the facilities that we have. And that may involve partnering with yacht clubs or marinas or what have you, or whatever, right? But to try and increase, right, the flow of, the people that come in on their boats, I know it because I spend half my summer up on the boat. They spend a lot of money. They don't need parking. They live on their boats, so they don't need, housing accommodations. It's a huge impact to the local economy. So that's what I'm trying to say through this long-winded, unorganized thought processes. I think we need to look a little bit beyond just the charter fishing, the impact of how we support the charter fishing fleet, and look more into how we bring, more boats into the economy.
Yeah.
Right?
You took the words right out of my mouth in terms of our number one priority that we identified at our meeting over at the yacht club, which was to monitor and mitigate low water level impacts. So I think that was our number one, the dredging piece. And I think this folds really nicely, not in place of that, but into the economic development study that Chris was talking about to possibly get us the dredging grant. I think it all needs to be integrated together. I very much agree with what's being said on the other side, the side of the table. I'm a big fan of the Ingalls too. I've fished with them. I really like the commercial fishing being part of our history, part of our community. I'm very supportive of it. But I think we need to manage everyone's expectations that we can't turn on a dime for this. It's a shame that we didn't maintain the momentum when this it was urgent a few years ago, and then circumstances changed and we didn't hear anything about this. And now once again, it's urgent. And that's just not a good way for us to run the city. So, I think we're gonna have to meet people in the fishing community in the middle and say, we want to hear from you and integrate what your needs are into this, if you will, master plan for dockage and slips and all that stuff. This could go into our thinking on what we're gonna do with street end licenses next time around. We may want to change that. We may want to make the determination based on the economic impacts and I believe everything that the folks were saying on the phone, that, it brings a lot of money into the community. I don't dispute that at all. But being armed with that would help us make a better decision on what we are getting for street end licenses would be much more beneficial for not only the city in terms of the revenue, they get, but also for the overall community if we start to, parcel those out for people that are, fishing businesses or something to that effect. So I fear this won't move fast enough. It's sad to hear when folks say that they may take their business elsewhere. They said it last time this came up. I don't want them to leave, but I think they need to, all the folks that have businesses need to meet us halfway on this stuff and need to understand that we cannot drop everything. Otherwise, we go away from everything we've worked so hard in terms of the discipline as this council with our strategic planning to be just sort of playing whack-a-mole.
Right.
And we need to keep that bandwidth down. God forbid, we have another pandemic, but we do need to make sure we keep some bandwidth for a water main break, a culvert that fails. And yeah, I can't see us doing this to staff to drop everything for this. But I would like to meet them halfway and say, we want to integrate your needs into an existing priority, but it won't potentially happen as quick as you like. And I recall they had some plan Bs in place when this happened last time before the sale fell through of the old laundry building. They had some plan Bs, which I think was just leasing space from someone else, so.
So I can see Gregory needs to leave. If we spent some time at the next workshop on priorities, and finish this discussion, everybody will have had some time to think. And it sounds like, I guess that's the first question. Is that gonna jam you up from a budgeting thing too much?
We can work with it. I think, we really need most of February though the staff have to have their budget proposals to me by, the charter says the beginning of March.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Because it sounds like, so we can just stick with the priorities we have. We can sort of look holistically at, boating, marines, that kind of thing. But if we do that, we're gonna need to remove some big stuff from the current list. The other question I have is if we, through Fleece or somebody else found and I don't know that there'd be any appetite for this, a senior level person who could work with you to manage some of this, because a lot of it does come through you, that could take some of your load off and potentially maybe some of Scott's in terms of if we need to keep Bald Head Stairs moving.
Right.
Is there could we hire a temporary resource to help with some of that?
I think John is that senior person. It's not that we
Okay.
don't have that resource that's there. It's that there's
You
still
don't
a
have
tremendous
to do
amount of city involvement with every project. You
Yep.
can't just, completely turn it over and say, all right, just go take care of it and
Yeah.
get the necessary approvals and take care of the accounting. There's a lot of other staff inputs, frankly, that we have from Scott's department or other departments, and then obviously me too. So,
Okay.
so.
I can put a project manager on it tomorrow, but they're not gonna be able to make decisions.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Mayor, if I may be excused, I have to volunteer at the high school. So,
Oh, right.
yep,
Ask
Volunteer
them if they're
well.
keeping their tennis courts.
for the basketball game.
Have fun.
Yeah.
That's
My
great.
shift starts in 5 minutes, so
Right.
thank you.
Well, how do we wanna, I don't wanna jam you up. It doesn't sound like staff will have time to pull budgets together. Some of them would, but, a lot of the big stuff it would impact.
Well, and certainly I'll say that obviously, you set the priorities, we'll build a budget around it. Obviously, that doesn't mean that as we get into the budget and you're like, well, you know what, that's a little too expensive, or you know what, we don't want to bite that off next year because that's just not something that we want to focus on. This is still a process where you still can, obviously add or remove priorities. So it's still an iterative process, but, we want some idea of like what your priorities are that you want us to at least build a budget around. So.
Well, and based upon our meeting last night with the Harbor Authority, there could be some things coming down on that too.
Okay.
With the economic impact study, getting that started and paid for, and moving past that to looking at revenue funding, a stream of revenue funding. So there's some big things coming yet. In regards to that, there's other big things that are back there that just haven't come out yet.
That's a really great point in that, like, you ultimately have to kind of, weigh out your resources that you have in the sense of, obviously, there's a tremendous amount of infrastructure needs that the city has and a lot of other areas, and spending dollars, bringing, water, sewer and electricity to certain slips at this point in time, it certainly can make a business case long-term, and there's economic benefits to that in a case you could make there, but there's some folks that would say, well, why aren't you spending those dollars that you're putting into that over here on the lead service lines that need to be done, or this road that needs to be done, or this pathway over on Park Street that you want to take out potentially, maybe it's bonding that we need, and people would be happy to see debt service that, for that, and see dollars being put into this. I mean, those are all things that you all have to weigh out as policymakers.
So how about, could we just go around knowing that we aren't committing, but what our gut tells us based on the conversation so far, especially hearing what Chris had to say, what we're thinking about taking the kind of marine water thing on sooner rather than later, just to get a sense of where people's heads are. And then we'll have, until Monday, we'll have this on our agenda on Monday. We'll either on Monday say, yeah, we're kind of ready to, we'll have to spend some time talking about it. But whether it's going to be a quick, we're going to, we'll have a clear sense of where we are, so that we can give staff direction for priorities. Does that work for everybody in terms of who wants to start?
I think I'll
Okay.
you can go around the horn, yeah.
Okay.
Now that Councilman Muncie's gone. I don't sense consensus from the council of removing any of the priorities, and I hear staff loud and clear that their plate's full. So I am not in favor of making this a crisis situation that we need to drop everything and go after. I do think there is promise, though, in integrating this issue of our commercial fishing fleet into the overall health of the watershed in terms of the lake levels. So, some of those boats, they're not as deep draft, obviously, as a sailboat, but some of them may even struggle around Coughlin Park with the current water levels. Don't quote me on that, but we have some problems. And I think integrating that into the conversation, and if that means budgeting for some more staff horsepower or consulting horsepower, so that we can put together a compelling proposal that does pick up on what the Engels said about the impact that fishing has in our community, business wise, that might help us then free up the dredging money that we desperately need from state or, Army Corps. But I think we need to make sure everyone's expectations are being managed, that, because this happened a few years ago. It was an emergency. It was a crisis. We have no choice but to leave Saugatuck. Well, that didn't happen. And then it stopped again. And then now it's back. And I'm uncomfortable with the council being whipsawed by stuff like this.
Okay.
So I'm not in favor of dropping anything from our priorities to make this a new priority. But integrating it in a way that may not meet everyone's deadlines in terms of schedule and ability to plan for the future, even ours, but I just don't see a way around it.
Okay, Joe?
Pretty much the same thing. I can't see bumping things off our priority list to take this on. I do believe we need some type of a vision for how we expand the availability of slips within our community. How that ties into an economic impact study. It's probably going to impact whether or not we dredge, depending on where we want them. But I think there's a kind of a longer term view of how we want to make more facilities available to the marine community, or do we? I think somebody has to look at that, whether that's a committee, whether that's coming on the backside of an economic study, I don't know. But I would like to look at it a little bit more holistically. And I don't think that that's going to happen given all the priorities that we have already in place for this year. So that's kind of where my head's at. I think I'm very close to what where you are, Scott.
Russ?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in line with everybody. It's a bit overwhelming to try to make these decisions on such a quick basis. So thank you, Chris, for saying that. I always back up to this as a council member. My role is to try to help set policy for the community. And I think back to strategy, right? We don't even have a we've identified the waterfront's important to the community from a visitor standpoint, et cetera, but we don't have a strategy on, okay, where do we want to have municipal? That to me is, what are we planning to? And I appreciate Holly and Dave being on the meeting. This is going to come to us. I mean, we have no control over these issues coming to us. It's our response to it that we have control over. And as it stands today, how does a municipal fishing spot fit into our overall strategy for the waterfront? I don't know, because we don't have one. This is in response to a particular situation for a private business, which I feel is important to the community. Don't get me wrong. But on the other hand, I have no control over Dave and Holly's relationship with their landlord and their slips and where they can go from there. I have no control over that. But as a city, I can't say, we envision these slips being at Coughlin or being at Wicks or maybe somewhere else. I don't know. I really don't know. Am I supportive of them being here? Yes. But I don't know what we're planning to, and that's where I struggle with this.
Chris?
Last night, we moved a little slower than I had hoped for, moving on the economic impact study. It's kind of it's nicely herding cats, trying to get 3 groups together and all in all agreement, because the township obviously has different areas that they want protected upstream. The Douglas has their own ideas with Union Street, Schultz Park. And for me, and I said this last night, my goal is to be able to do dredging that will keep the waterway navigable, because we need a navigable port. We were able to get it moved to task 1. We did pick a company that would be beneficial to do the economic impact study. But again, after that, we have to have a revenue funding source that is there. Army Corps of Engineers does it up until Coral Gables. They don't fund anything after that. Waterways, they don't fund dredging. They do projects. They'd love to get onto another dinghy dock or something like that. But eventually we're going to have to put big money into the waterfront, and it should be in a comprehensive way that you're talking about, so that we just don't have this. I don't even know how many charter boats there are. They're not all going to fit in those 3 or 4 slips. Right. So what about those other guys that have a charter fishing? So we haven't even talked to the marina yet about what money they're going to put in for dredging, because it's going to affect their boats too. So I think it's a wonderful idea. It came up. It's something we need to, but we need to do it comprehensively. And I'm not there.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing, and we can get back to the angles with, is value you, love everything you've done with the community. As we looked at what's on our plate, what's in our future, we really don't see we can take priorities off. We're midway through most of them. And we realize that we really need to step back and look at how we address the overall needs of the marine community. And do that comprehensively. And we know we need to do it, but we can't, there's unrealistic for us to be able to meet your needs in 2 years.
I think it might be another thing for all of you to, and we could report to them. I think there's 2 things that are happening that are at least going to inform the broader discussion. One is, at least taking that first step with the economic impact study, and certainly the charter fishing community is a huge piece of that. But I think as we are looking at our overall land use master plan, I think some of this, what do we need maybe from a slips perspective or a use of the waterfront perspective? I think some of that naturally, maybe not quite to the detail of what maybe Scott and Joe were referring to, but maybe a little bit more of a vision and direction on where the community is looking to head. Something that could be fleshed out some more, maybe through that land use master plan process, I think might be a natural place for at least some of that work. So I think that's 2 places that we at least can be taking these next steps. Maybe an immediate project with them is not immediately on the priority list, but laying the groundwork for something broader,
Good. All right, so we'll have priorities on our agenda for Monday.
And a lot of other things.
And a lot of other things.
So,
Okay, so that takes us to our public comment period. People can comment about whatever they wish. I don't think there's anyone in the room. Anyone on Zoom wish to make a public comment? Nick, you're there. Yes, Nick, go ahead, please. If you could just.
How are you? Thanks again for having me. I am just, I'm a bit confused.
Can you start with your name and where you live?
Oh, sure. Nick Agnew. I live at I own a property at 580 Mason Street in Saugatuck, right at Mason and Elizabeth. And I'm just confused as to, we were part of, I think it was initially 11 that got submitted our application in late. And then, my wife and I came to a meeting in person. We've been trying to make as many Zoom calls as we can. She had to leave. She's on a flight. But I am just speaking for both of us in that we're somewhat confused. I did reach out to Ryan, who told me, again, I've just been trying to keep up with the dates of what's going on with the next steps, because the last time we were there, you were going to make some amendments to some of the language. And then Ryan informed me that and I've heard here that there were 11 total, but 2 are not included in that. And now I'm assuming that my wife and I are one of those 2, and we're just kind of scratching our heads as to why we would not be included in that. I mean, I will say that we realized later that our application was due October 1st. It expired at the end of October. We found out about this through our house manager when we're not there, our cleaning team. She informed us, she got notification somehow, and we quickly reacted. We reached out to Grayson, we reached out to Ryan. This was an honest mistake. I think if we would have we went through our emails, we weren't given any notification. And again, that's your right to do that, but we're people that, had we known, we would have complied without hesitation. And, we've been great property owners. We've been doing this for 20 years. We've never had a violation as far as I'm aware. I think maybe a garbage can was left close to the street on Mason one time. We screen our guests. We prohibit events and parties. We emphasize respect for our neighbors, for the neighborhood. Our properties were built to fit the neighborhoods they're in. For 2 decades plus, we've been encouraged our guests to support local businesses, the local economy, keep love and respect the character of Saugatuck that my wife and I know all you value. And, this process was brand new to us. We're more than willing to pay the applicable penalty fee, and we respectfully ask to be included with those other 9 short-term rentals and the other rental too that's being boxed out that are under consideration. At the end of this, we now know the process, and we will abide by it. We're willing to pay the penalty fee. We do love the community. We hope to move there eventually. Like I mentioned before, I have another daughter left in college. We hope to continue being a positive, responsible part of it, even as short-term rentals. I know that it's been a very contentious, issue
Nick,
there.
your time is up.
Got you. Thank you for your time and consideration. At the end of the day, I do not know what the next steps are for us.
We can, I think Grayson can follow up with you to just clarify, or you can reach out to him. So, okay. Anyone else wish to comment?
Hello, board. This is John Janowski. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not there. We live in Chicago, and we are the 298.
Can you give us your last name again? We didn't hear it.
Janowski. We are the 298 Sugar Hill home.
Oh,
So I would just thank you for reading our message. We really, we love the community. We love visiting. We live in Chicago. The house we built, and just to clarify the record, we followed all the rules. When we signed our agreement, it was it was at a time where the rules were different. So we don't necessarily think it's fair that we're having new rules imposed upon us afterwards, especially that since we followed every single rule diligently. When we built that home, we had to work with Eagle, we had to work with the critical dunes. That took 1.5 years. We respect all the rules. We followed the rules. We did everything according to the book, and then the rules changed on us. I mean, we're in the same boat where we hope to eventually retire in Saugatuck, us and our family, and we just feel like we're getting punished now for doing everything right. So I would ask that at least you guys have a discussion at the next board meeting. We're not asking for an exception just for us, but inclusively for anybody else that fell into our bucket where, you know, we went down a path where the rules are one way and then they changed. And at that point, there was no option for us to go a different route. We've committed. So.
Thank you,
But
John.
again, we love Saugatuck and we do love the community. So everything you guys do is amazing and we're grateful for that.
Great, appreciate you,
John.
joining the meeting. Anyone
Thank you.
else? Okay, council comments. Chris, you want to start?
I just appreciate always the discussion that we have. I'm looking forward to spring. I hate leaving here when it's dark. And we'll see you on Monday night.
Great. Russ?
No comment. Thanks, everybody, and see you Monday.
Joe?
Reserve my comments for Monday. Thank you all.
All right.
Yeah, let's wrap. It's been a long night for staff too.
Okay, who would like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say yes.
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 Meeting adjourned. Thanks,
you all.
everybody.